Okay, it's 6 o'clock, Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2023. I will call the regular board meeting for February to order. Charlie, could do a roll call.
Chair Beecham.
Here.
Vice Chair Straubing.
Here.
Board Member Crawford.
Here.
Board Member Fonder.
Here.
And Board Member Cadwater is absent. She had a family function that she notified me of.
I'd like to move to excuse Tina for her absence.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda. Any changes?
No, sir.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll support. You take it.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from the January 10th, 2023 regular board meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve the minutes from January 10th.
Supported.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. Any public comment? We'll move on. Action items. First thing, and I'll let Charlie take over with the action items.
Yeah, first one up is a benevolence request from the Red Arrow Robotics, and we're joined by their coach, Brian Forney. So I'll set this up and then I'll hand it over a little bit. There's and Andrew obviously is very informed and aware of this, but we were, I don't know how it necessarily, Andrew mentioned it at one of the board meetings, or maybe after one of the board meetings, that, hey, could we look at the engine room as potentially a spot for the robotics team to have a build space basically. And Perry, you had kind of said, hey, you reached out to me the next day and said, I think we can do this pretty easy. And so the idea kind of formulated that if the board so chooses to grant the benevolence request, we could build, actually, will you go ahead and pull that first picture up, Megan? Basically, what the plan would be to build essentially like an 8-foot OSB temporary wall, kind of bisecting the engine room, make the right side of the picture here essentially safe for the kids to be in. There's a little bit of cleanup work that we would need to do in terms of pulling down some, securing any loose tiles, moving a few things. We need to hang some emergency exits. Other thing we would need to do is have Chief Withdrawal from Lowell Area Fire Department come out and just big eye everything and give his blessing from a life safety standpoint. But Perry, Andrew, me, Casey, Ryan, Brian, we all met and kind of looked at it and kind of discussed what was feasible, what wasn't. I did reach out to our legal counsel, just as I had asked the coach to talk with the superintendent and the school about liabilities, and we've worked through, there's still a little bit more to work through, but nothing that was giant red flags. So Perry can probably speak a little bit to the cost of building the actual wall, but we think that we can, for under $1,000 and a little bit of in-kind donations, we can construct the wall and make this a suitable space. And staff doesn't provide recommendations necessarily on benevolence requests, but we have been involved, and we would be supportive of pursuing this. The timeline, I think, is pretty flexible. There's no super urgent thing where we would need to have it done now. So it's something that we would be able to work on probably on a rainy day, and probably just about a day's worth of work to construct everything. So With that, I'll turn it over to Brian to explain a little bit about the program and how the space would be used. But Brian, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so my name is Brian Forney. I've been the head coach at for Lowell area schools robotics for about 4 years now, and just thank you for the opportunity to come here and talk to you guys about this. We see this as an awesome opportunity. We've been expanding the program, so we've had a high school team. The high school team's been around since about 2008 and started competing in 2010. This year, finally, we were able to expand the program down to the middle school. So we established a middle school. That's how Andrew got involved in it, because his son's on our middle school team. The middle school team is now about 10 times the size of the high school program, which is awesome, which is good because I want to be able to grow this program. And next year we'll actually be building at least 2 robots for the middle school team, possibly 3. I got 1 team for 15 students. We've gotten tons of support from the local community. The program has raised about $10,000 in sponsorships from local businesses and a few individual supporters. But what we lack is a space. We had a space, the old shop room in the middle school, so the old high school's old shop room was ours, and then it started moving into a STEM science room, and then obviously the building's under renovation right now, and I was just talking to Nate Fowler about a week and a half ago about the future plan for that room. It was originally labeled robotics, but nature abhors a vacuum, so it's getting filled up because I'm not in the building to fight for it all the time, and so it would turn into a shared space for us. And so an opportunity like this is perfect. As I was telling Charlie when I was there, it's the perfect room for us because it looks like a place that my middle school students can't do any damage to. Like if they spill something on the floor, I'm just going to yell at them. So it's a great opportunity for us. In talking to Nate Fowler, there's a long-term kind of hope plan to put something for robotics in the next millage proposal to get us a space possibly within Cherry Creek, but that's years. So this would be an excellent opportunity for us to provide a space where, and I haven't, for 3 years now, haven't had all of our stuff in one space. Our tools and equipment are scattered between one biology room at the high school, our trailer, 2 of my mentors' barns, and one of my assistant head coach's business is allowing us to store our metalwork tools there. So just the opportunity to have everything together in one spot, a space where the kids could have room to actually build a robot and not have to put everything away every night, and then a space where we actually would have room to drive the robot. That would give us enough room to actually test drive the robot all in one space. Would be a huge opportunity for our kids. So I really appreciate your favorable consideration and taking the time to listen. I'll like any questions.
You said you're going to be bringing in equipment, I mean like drill presses or I don't know.
Right, yes, we have some power tools. We have a drill press, and we have a couple of bandsaws. We have several kind of benchtop tools, and then a variety of handheld power tools, as well as a whole collection.
And we've got all the electricity, of course, there to support that, or?
That was one of the things that we looked at. We talked about, we can't make any commitments, but I think it's, nothing was seen that was not overcomable, I guess, or.
I don't think I think we looked at, there was a couple, there's enough outlets in there that when we were looking at it before, we felt like we could make it work. And I guess the one other thing I should add is I did talk to Nate Fowler about the insurance piece, and I'm just waiting on the paperwork, but they don't see any problems with getting approval for the operations of the robotics team to fall under the Lowell area schools insurance.
Yeah, and we can figure
It's probably the most important thing.
I would say, so that's from a utilities perspective, I think it's very valuable to support STEM-related activities to the extent that it doesn't expose our customers to unnecessary liabilities, obviously. But I've talked with Jessica. Obviously, I think the majority of our conversation has probably been the unexciting a discussion of insurance waivers, things like that. So what we would look to do on our side to protect us from liabilities would be, obviously have fire chief come out and take a look at it. That's kind of the first step, make sure he approves, and we've not done something, small, or failed to do something like put an emergency exit sign up or anything like that. So he would take a look at it, and then we would look to have every participant sign a waiver that basically would just indemnify from a personal standpoint, or not, but from an individual standpoint, and then to have the additional coverage covered under the school. Our attorney Jessica did not see anything that was really even a challenge from a liability standpoint. So that's been our focus, is seeing if we can support the organization, because again, it's very STEM related. It's a great program, especially for what we do.
I'm just pleased to see that we have a use for the space. We've got
We've got to get the big eye from Shannon before we have a use for the space, but.
This is a really good potential thing. It's a perfect fit for providing some support to our community, so, yeah.
I also see it working well. I also, the things that we, putting this wall up and everything, I think is, just from a light and power, is a positive thing, that it then closes off some areas that we have that are still under construction. We're not sure what we're doing with that area, some pits and everything. So even if the robotics team wasn't there, I think it's a good thing. So I have just a couple questions, because again, I looked at it and through some preliminary numbers of what it would take to do putting a wall there. My question, with the numbers that you're getting, again, because what we're looking at, certainly we can put a wall down this way, but there's also this, what our plans were is to put a wall down this way with a hinge, two panels, so that low light power has someplace to put refrigerators, appliances that we collect, and that type of thing. So a storage area. My question would be, is the need to go and run that back 10 feet and across, here, making it L-shaped to give more space. The other is, I'm going to say, because in my business, I keep track of cost of OSB and different things, and it is, when we were first looking at it, I had estimated the cost and of materials, and then whether light and power or we get a group together to erect it, a bunch of fathers or whatever the case may be. OSB has come down initially some more, and other woods. I would like to look at what the cost difference is going 10 feet high instead of 8 feet high. I think 10 feet, it just, 10 feet in my mind just makes it a little bit more, kids will be kids, that try to jump up and hang on the wall, or, and I know you'll have them supervised, but again,
It's just one less.
it's just one less thing, and I don't think going 10 feet instead of 8 feet would make but $100 difference, maybe a couple $100 difference of doing that. But I'm all for using that space, I've wanted that space to be a community a place where community could meet, a place where we could have our, this has worked out great, having our board meetings here. I just got so, in today's atmosphere, I just didn't like where we had our board meetings with only having one means of exit. So therefore, at some time, I could, it's not in our current budget, and it's not for several years, but see this being, a boardroom or whatever. So I'm all in favor of utilizing this space for a very worthy cause, a very, place where kids can call it their home, call it their clubhouse, call it their, that's theirs. And again, knowing that my business, having to set up tools on a job site and doing something takes a lot of time. So if every time, what the situation that they're in right now, where they're sharing a room and they have to put everything back in a closet, and that just diminishes the amount of time that they have to be able to do creative things.
And it's in different places, so if they don't have everybody bringing all the stuff. Is that, what's on this side of the wall? Is that the only door, that overhead and that?
So
Or what's at this end, where you took the picture?
right
from?
here is the door going to like
The office.
our offices and everything, and then right here, there's another door, and this is
Exit door.
that's specifically the door I want Shannon to look at, because right now it's got like a slider lock on it. So I know you've gotta have two means of egress, I don't think there's any like, oh man, it doesn't have what it needs, it's just what do we need to do to that door, what do we need to
We
do?
probably have to put a crash bar on it.
Is it key card access though? Because
No.
I'm assuming they're gonna be there
No, we're gonna look at
after
adding.
hour of light and power, right?
We're-
After your normal,
What we would do is probably change
that lock different?
change the key lock, key that one different, give them a key so they have access to this space. Because that's really the main entrance and exit, and it faces towards the parking lot. So those were some of the concerns Jessica had, is where are people gonna be parking, and is it a hazard to get from parking to the facility? Because we could be
Yeah.
responsible for something, but with the parking being over there, that being the main door, like I said, we're probably gonna add access control there, so you just swipe it, but,
Is that overhead door operational still?
yes.
Because that'd be cool for the kids too.
And that's one of the things that,
To give them more room to work and they can open it up and.
I was saying, especially in the summer,
Yeah.
or spring, when it's nice out, fall when it's nice out.
And then there is a restroom in back over in this black area.
Oh, yep.
There is a restroom.
I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah, and like I said, Shannon may come in and say, you gotta have sprinklers, you may say you're changing the use and you gotta bring it fully up to code to be compliant. I have no clue. I've talked to Shannon about it a little bit, and we're gonna have him, we've got some other stuff that we're working with him on, with AEDs and some other stuff, so I mentioned it to him and he's gonna come check it out, and I told him we'd like to, pending board approval, we'd like to try and make this happen, so what do we need to do to make it happen? And he's a very reasonable person, but also has responsibilities to carry out, so we'll honor those, but hope that he says, no big deal, let's do it.
Well, there's gotta be ways to save on labor too, because Perry did that whole fence project with, community volunteers and stuff, so. There's no
He's
reason-
talking about at the cemetery.
Yeah,
We put in, one of my projects, I didn't like the piles of stuff, and I wanted to cover it up.
Oh, yeah.
At Oakwood Cemetery, so I went to city council and said, if I raise the money, can we do this? And they said, absolutely, so
Remember that?
it was an easy ask, for people that have family members that are, that's their residence.
Yeah.
you got 12 people just between your board and the council, if you threw it out there for a free labor Saturday or Monday afternoon or something. I can't imagine getting the help to do The expensive part would be too hard.
Well, it's, and again, we're just basically looking at a 69 center wood with OSB,
Brace it up against a lot of the posts and
screw it, you know.
screw it to the floor. Nice thing is we don't have to worry, like you said, we don't have to worry about tearing anything up in there.
Oh, plus they're central, they're downtown, if that overhead door's open and people are walking by, they're gonna ask what's going on. Maybe they got kids who wanna get into it too, and they just don't know what's there.
I was very intrigued. Personally, like I said, we don't make recommendations, but staff sure as heck would be supportive of figuring this one out.
And I'll make sure it conformed with the city codes and everything, but I would certainly like to see a, home of Lowell Robotics or whatever their name is, and, because again, they would have some pride to it.
Didn't you spearhead the sign that's down where the crew keeps all their stuff?
Yeah.
It says Home of Lowell Crew, and then it's, sponsored by.
Well, that was,
Steel plumbing and all that.
well, that was when originally it was on the Grand River, and we built floating docks for the crew team, and that was, again, a fundraiser that we did, and, yeah. So,
Are we heating that space?
Yes. Ish. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
it's not indoor,
Can we-
but it's heated with the big natural
Yeah,
gas
I can see
hanging.
it.
it's heated enough to
Yeah, oh, there is one in that picture, yeah.
make sure your pipes aren't
And
freezing.
we would, there would be no access between Line Power's office and there.
No, we'd have that door locked.
Yeah.
Keep it cool, and kids will work harder.
We didn't do anything to secure it more for like, if they're gonna have tools and things like that in it that,
I think that's something that we would work through as things came in. Obviously, we would look to be more partners in this than just, hey, have the space and run with it. We'd want to work with them, make sure they had the space they need. I personally would like to support the program, not just give a space. And I know there's been interest from Casey, our resident engineer. So, yeah, we'd have to work through it. I think the space is relatively secure because right now, if you can get into that, you can get into our facility. So it's secured as much as the rest of the building, as much as, anybody could throw a brick through my window and have access to our own building. Yeah, you could do that there, but in general, it's a
Secure.
locked, secure facility.
Under the umbrella of the school, though, I would imagine their insurance people would wanna.
And that's right, I'm not sure
Too,
what,
right? So it'd
yeah.
probably be them, if anybody, telling you you had to do more or less or whatever.
So I will interject that the school doesn't care if all my stuff gets stolen, because they don't know.
Oh.
They wouldn't help you replace it, and they wouldn't sweat it if it was gone.
I retract my previous.
They're worried about lawsuits
Yeah.
and kids.
Yeah, as long as I don't lose a kid or any of my kids' limbs, we're okay.
I think it's a super cool idea as an outsider and a ratepayer, and that's kind of what Light Power's known for, is
This is
community centered.
public power.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I'll move that we move forward with the benevolence request, subject to kind of getting the overall fire approval and like some of the bigger milestones, but moving forward with it, with the intention to give them space, or let them use the space.
And all support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further questions? Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay,
I'll say.
So I voted that it's, obviously I'm a mentor on the team, but conflict of interest tends to be financial, and I don't foresee a scenario where I make money off this.
No. I was gonna say, I looked
I think it's the
at
other way around,
I looked at it, I think it doesn't change the vote. So if somebody did challenge your vote, it
Mhm.
doesn't change the outcome. cities dealt with a similar
Yeah, we've done
situation
it in-
recently.
You gotta also balance if they're challenging your vote, and they probably don't have the best motives to begin with, right? Something like this, it's not like it's a capital purchase or a,
But you're basically a participating parent, you're not an administrator of it or
Yeah.
anything like that.
No vested interest.
yeah, you're not getting
Yeah.
paid by the
Well,
school.
I mean, I've had to research conflict of interest, but I just got back on the council, and generally it's financial.
It is financial, yeah.
So,
Some material gain.
Would you
Yeah.
like me to bring it to the council once you're closer and see if we can joint meeting all the labor, throwing the wall up? I just wanna run in there and yell, build a wall really bad, so. If you guys are cool with that, I'll do it.
Build a taller one.
Build a wall, build it, Terry said 10 feet.
No way they'll get
I'll
over
do
it.
it.
There's ladders.
Yeah,
Once we get
the logistics.
logistics and everything, then we'll figure it out.
Alright, well, I'm volunteering them because they're not here to tell me.
Yep. So, and it's, you know, it's not, putting that wall up, it's not rocket science, so it would be,
I see.
Good news if it is though.
it's, you know, and,
Yeah, so he's also an aerospace engineer, so.
okay. So less than, you know, I just can't imagine, but even half a day to put that up.
What a super cool use of your benevolence program.
I love it. I'm pretty excited
Yeah,
about this
that's
one.
super cool. It's a good meeting to come to.
Okay, we'll move on.
All right, and I think
You-
Brian's
Our meetings last really long sometimes, so you don't have to stay.
I'm gonna go,
Oh, you're welcome to.
I'm gonna go make sure they're building the road up.
Anything else?
You know, if you could build a robot that would build the wall,
Yeah.
you know.
I'll be content to just build a robot before the competition starts. Thank you very much, I appreciate your time and
Brian,
support.
we'll be in touch. I will work with Shannon to get his review shortly, and we'll just be in touch.
Awesome, appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Number B,
All right, this is a mouthful. Battery energy storage system capacity purchase and sale agreement consideration. So shortened version is MPPA is investing in a battery storage project, but it is a capacity only transaction, so there's no energy. So it would just go to meet our future short position, a lot of it being created through Campbell. But as the memo says, this transaction is exclusively for MISO zonal resource credits for MISO Zone 7. Again, that just means this goes towards our capacity and our reliability requirement for the lower peninsula of Michigan. As the board's aware, our power supply is shifting dynamic quite a bit, and one of the impacts is future short positions on our capacity. If you will scroll to the next two graphs and zoom out just a touch. So what you will see is this, I won't get into all this. What we'll pay attention to here is this black line. That is.
don't have it.
Huh? Yes, sorry, I'm sorry. There's a ton of information on here, so I didn't include this in the packet. Because we're going to review this in more detail in a couple months when the planning reserve auction comes up and we talk about the changes in seasonally accredited capacity at MISO. Casey's going to do a board training like he did last year as a follow-up to the planning reserve auction. But essentially, just as a quick run through, these are all of our different resources: coal, natural gas, landfill gas, wind, and solar. But what you can see with the seasonally accredited capacity, which is new this year, our capacity used to be a straight line, same every season, and our resources were accredited the same all season. Now you'll notice that the black lines are planning reserve margin, PRMR, but it fluctuates. It goes down in the winter, goes up in the summer, down in the winter, goes up in the summer. Kind of what you'd expect, but what you see in later years is the net short and long position. The net short position grows. And there's seasons that we are short in our capacity, so we'll have to go and either find investments, go to the planning reserve auction, or enter into bilateral transactions to secure zonal resource credits. So this is our outlook without the battery storage project. If you'll go to the next page, please. So this layers in where the battery storage project will fill. So you start to see that the battery storage is, and this is the earliest COD, so it could push out a little further, but there's a lot in place that is saying that they should be able to receive zonal resource credits in the 25-26 planning year. So the red line is the new battery storage project and what it will do. We still have a little bit of a short position here, but it goes a long way in filling our future short position that's created. And I guess I should point this out. This is our coal. So as our coal drops off, our short position grows. So this is showing the retirement of Campbell here, and then the repowering of Bell River beyond that. So by 2028, we should be spring, basically 2027-ish, we're going to be coal-free, but it will create that short position. Something that I will provide a little bit more information on pricing. Pricing for capacity is sold in kW months or megawatt days. Kind of like a kilowatt hour, it's a quantity over time. So without getting too technical, you buy it in a kilowatt month. When you look at the duration of the full contract, the average price per kW month is significantly below what bilateral transactions are going for in the same time frames. So from an economic standpoint, we aren't going to be able to bring a new resource online. One of the things that makes this very attractive is it has what you call an advanced MISO queue position. So to bring any new resource to the grid, you have to go through MISO, go through their planning process. It's a multi-year, typically 4 to 5 years to get approval before you can start construction. So it starts to highlight the challenges that we're facing with no notice for Campbell shutting down. When consumers announced that Campbell was going to shut down out of the blue 15 years earlier than originally anticipated, we understood and definitely support the idea of moving away from coal, but the timing of it created very unique challenges where we did not have ample opportunity to bring new resources to the grid because of the process. This has an advanced position in the queue, so it's already made it the majority of the way through the MISO queue. So really the only option we had to fill this short position was find a resource with an advanced queue or advanced queue position, or go to the bilateral market and just purchase off the open market.
Let's hope there's more advanced positions in the MISO queue for the
We're-
future, because
We're working down some other options. We're waiting on a lot to see, and they're still waiting to see what the outcome is of the DTE integrated resource plan that includes repowering Bell River to a natural gas facility. But really, this project is designed to be a bridge. That's why it's only a 10-year deal. It's not a longer-term deal. Our PPAs on solar are typically 20 to 25-year deals. So this is a medium-term deal, I guess. The first 3 years, MPPA allocated or distributed participant allocation based on who had the largest short position from Campbell. That's why we have such a large percentage of this project. We're over 10% of the project in the first 3 years. The remaining 7 years, it drops down to a more normal distribution that will allow us to layer in additional diversification. That it's one of the outcomes of moving away from coal is trying to diversify our energy portfolio, or our capacity and energy portfolio more. So
maybe it's right in front of me, I'm not seeing it. So at the the end of the day, basically, and I know, I get the sense it is gonna be maybe graduated or something, but what is the cost per megawatt hour?
So there is no, that's an energy unit.
Right.
There is no energy with this, so everything's in KW month and.
KW, okay, you
If-
said, but,
if
I mean, you can reframe that though, with
I would- so-
math magic.
Well, there is no equivalent to energy, but I would prefer not to so what's happened with some of these deals is these things aren't fully subscribed. So if MPPA members talk publicly about pricing, it can put the developer in a disadvantaged position. So I'm happy to go over that with you, but
I get it, okay.
the framework is, the other option is to go get a bilateral transaction and it's higher. What I'll say is the higher transactions are north of $5 a KW month. This comes in under $5 a KW month for the average cost per unit, I guess, over the duration. There is an escalator. I'm happy to get into it a little bit more
Another
detail.
time, yeah, okay.
But our total commitment over 10 years is included in here and 600, I don't say, I can't find that.
671,000.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, 671. So roughly, and it changes because you've got allocations for years 1 through 3. But the weighted average of the capacity is under $5 a KW month, which is kind of that mark to compare to the market. But happy to answer any questions.
So I guess I'm curious that you said it was like kilowatt months, but isn't,
It's in,
but it's, this is a capacity credit, right, which is just, it's like a megawatt, right?
yeah, it's a megawatt.
It's a power, not an energy.
Yeah, yeah, and it's, so everything's talked about here in megawatts, once you just convert that to KW, and it's just of what duration do you want to talk about it in?
Right.
It ultimately would be for years 1 through 3, 2.4 zonal resource credits, which is one zonal resource credit is 1 megawatt year.
Okay, so it's a megawatt, so it's a megawatt of capacity
For that
for
year.
a year, so it's not truly energy, even though it looks like an energy unit. But
Yeah, there is no, yeah, it's a,
it's a capacity over duration, not a power over duration.
yes, it's a ability to support the grid over some time frame, and how much support to the grid do you bring at any given moment in that time frame. And that's where you get the 2.8 zonal resource credits, or the 0.6 zonal resource credits for the latter years.
Okay.
Are these type of projects like able to advance in the MISO queue, or is it just this specific project was far enough along, so it was an advanced one that they targeted? That's what you're saying?
Yeah,
It's
this-
not like it's not like MISO's going, hey, we have a shortfall, we're gonna, like, these battery projects, we're gonna move them, just let them like skip parts of it, or.
No, they are,
Gotcha.
they had started this and had gotten so far along in their process without anchor tenants, and then
Gotcha.
knowing that an anchor tenant would come along.
Yeah.
So they
yeah,
pursued the project with no guaranteed ROI, knowing that there would be an ROI, because
Yeah.
somebody would, capacity is
yeah. We
valuable.
would need.
Yeah,
Yeah, capacity is very valuable,
Here
especially
we are.
if, if capacity goes to the cost of new entry again. Inflation has had quite a bit of upward pressure on cost of new entry, so capacity is just getting more and more expensive. There's also quite a bit of unknowns with the seasonally accredited capacity structure. MISO is trying to push this through much quicker than a lot of people think it should be.
Sure.
So we don't know what disruption the seasonal accreditation will create in the capacity market either.
Yeah, it could get.
It could get more, it could get impact. We could also watch capacity clear at a really low number and the value of capacity plummet.
True.
But long-term, resources, we talked about it last year, your fossil fuel resources, your baseload resources are going away, and they're being replaced with higher installed capacity but lower accredited capacity because they're intermittent resources. So yeah, the value of capacity, nobody thinks that the value of capacity is going to go down over the next decade.
So then, I forget if you mentioned this, but why is our percent going much lower than years 4 to 10?
Yeah, so the
Is
first
that
three,
because we're looking to have something replacing?
yeah, so what the whole project's only 25 megawatts. It's a kind of an entry into the battery world.
Yeah.
So this is purely MPPA's strategy to allocate participation amongst its members. They took an approach on years 1 through 3 because 1 through 3 falls inside immediate requirements for planning the state resource adequacy requirement. So what MPPA did was say, who has the largest short position that was created through the retirement of Campbell,
Oh,
and we'll allocate pro rata based on that. Years 4 through 6, let's look at short position, total short position of all utilities and allocate amongst all utilities and all short positions, not just the short positions that were created through the retirement of Campbell.
So, okay, so they just use this battery project as, hey, let's use this to help buffer
Yeah.
Campbell
That's
as a
exactly.
way to kick it off. Okay.
That's exactly what it is. And it's an opportunity, so this is an interesting agreement. There are special provisions written into the agreement that will provide MPPA educational opportunities and visibility into the operation of battery storage systems. So one of the things that I've learned through this process is it's a very intricate process to monetizing the value, the revenue streams with batteries. And there's a lot that goes into charge, discharge cycle, degradation, do you leverage arbitrage deals, capacity deals? I mean, there's a lot of pieces. So one of the things that MPPA wants to do with this is gain operational insight into battery projects, which is also a unique piece of this project.
Mhm.
Just to see.
Any questions, Ben?
And then our payment is based on that percentage per year?
Yeah, it's based on how many zone resource credits? It's a per credit
Okay.
allocation.
CRs.
Yeah, zone resource credit.
Are you waiting to talk about it, Perry, or you good?
No, I'm just going back, looking at something. Okay.
If anybody has any pizza, there's pizza in the back.
I would entertain a motion to approve the energy services project, power purchase commitment authorization for the battery energy storage system capacity purchase and sale agreement.
Saved me a lot, so move.
Yeah.
And supported.
That's right, I
I
had
thought
to
you were
go back
gonna
there
just
and
make
get
a
that.
motion, I thought you were
Okay.
waiting to.
No. So, the motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. There is one thing I should have noticed this when we were approving the agenda. But I would like, and I just didn't catch it, I'd like to move the closed session to the end because we actually have it in action items. And if we go to closed session and then we come back, then people have to leave, then they're gonna come back, and so, if it's all right with everybody,
Right?
I would move the closed session to after the informational items. Is everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Next is strategic plan review. I know Charlie wants to talk about it. We'll wait till,
Let them get
we'll
situated.
we'll wait till the pizza guys get back.
Yeah, stock in the road shop.
It doesn't live up to the annual standard, but
That's what I told him. Should have
not
abstained
nearly
from
as
the pizza
good.
vote.
You know, if he would've, if he
One
didn't,
light's still
if he
here.
didn't, if he didn't, if he didn't double book his truck tonight or for the 16th, or, hope you got that worked out.
Oh, I took Jim off this board a long time ago.
I had to tell someone no.
So, one is we're gonna go over the strategic plan. It's not necessarily that we're gonna get through the whole thing tonight. We wanna spend some time on it. And then I just wanna, my feelings of the strategic plan, we're gonna tweak it and everything. But I'm just gonna tell you that because we talked about it before, the actually having somebody come in and work with us with a strategic plan and everything. And I'm opposed to it. I'm opposed to it because of the cost that's involved. It ranged anywhere from $20,000 to $35,000. And that's, for my feeling is, basically having somebody tell us where I think we know as a board, and we're a strong board, and we have a strong general manager. I think we know what we want to do and where we want to go. I think it's just some fine tuning it. So I'm just throwing that out to begin with. I think it's, sometimes when you're paying for studies and you're paying for a lot of things, you pretty much know where you want to go, have a feeling of how it's going to go and that type of thing. And so paying $35,000 just to confirm what I believe we know we want to do is ridiculous at this time. So anyway.
Chair, may I?
Yep.
We had this exact same thing with that fire authority consultant. The townships both wanted to bring in a consultant and go through the department's whole thing, and the city ended up voting no on it. I voted no on it. And we paid them $32 and some change, I think, $1,000 to come in and basically verify everything we had already done. We paid them to put our equipment plan in writing, which it was already done. And a lot of the recommendations they made, they did so with a FDNY budget in a small community fire department. So I would definitely agree with you that it's a complete waste of money. You don't need to pay for
Models out
knowledge
there
that
if we
your
need
board
to
already
look
has.
at, we can, choose from and,
And every recommendation they made that we've tried to follow through on has either created more conflict or been completely unattainable. And there's plenty of talent over there and on this board. I don't think you guys need to pay somebody to tell you what you already know.
So anyway, with that, I'll let Charlie can chime in and.
So a couple things I thought we'd try to accomplish, and one of them is really us trying to just capture feedback from the board. Discussions when Steve was here, discussions specifically about the action items list and the applicability of the action items list. Is that something, there were just questions that he had brought up, there was questions from the board. So in talking with, I lean on Holland quite a bit. Dave Coster, their general manager, is what I would classify as an expert in the Carver model of governance. You've heard him talk.
yeah.
The man knows what he's talking about.
Super guy.
Yeah.
Super smart guy.
Very, very, very talented, but just kind of looking at things, if you'll go to the triangle, or the pyramid. I was gonna say, is it not gonna work?
You got it,
So
say
I
it.
haven't got much of it.
Yeah. So I just want to bring this up, and this is from the Carver model of governance, and it just kind of shows kind of the separation of, Steve Vandermeer talked a lot about ends and means. The board owns the ends, it's staff's responsibility to develop the means to accomplish the ends. but it's this handshake, is the term that I've stolen from this, is how do you go from, do you connect the ends and the means? Really, that falls in the strategic plan. That's the goal of the strategic plan.
And here's the way I'm looking at it, there's some mention in here about this is not staff dictating the strategic direction, and it's not.
No.
But the staff are stakeholders in this whole operation that we have going on here. So the feedback that we can get from the people on the ground in the organization informs us better on what we need to do.
And I'll say, if the staff can't capture the strategic direction, then maybe we should, if the staff doesn't have a good understanding, if I don't have a good understanding of what I think is the strategic direction that we're moving, maybe we should bring in a consultant to help us. We have lengthy conversations. I think every board member is aware of what direction we're headed. Perry and I were talking, I said, if we scrap this thing and we brought in a $100,000 strategic plan, do we do anything different tomorrow? I see us as a very motivated utility. When I came on board, Steve and I, we still talk about it, use the phrase pass the baton. There was momentum. It's not like we were trying to jumpstart something. There was a lot set in motion. We continue to keep it in motion. And I think the goal of Steve's departure and my arrival was continuity. And I think the effort that we put into, the board, Steve, everybody put into continuity through that transition has kept us on a strong strategic direction. I will say the one thing that would provide, additional guidance, or I think could strengthen the strategic plan, is a set of goals, or on here, kind of strategic, that critical issues and goals that are associated with that. And again, I tried to capture at a very high level 6 goals and what I did is I took our strategic initiatives that are really means-driven initiatives and tried to make sure that every one of those could get layered in under one of our goals, and make sure that we try to capture all the big buckets. So as as far as the conversation today, and like I mentioned to Perry, is this could be a very lengthy conversation. It can be spread out over multiple board meetings. It doesn't need to be determined today, because we're not, again, same reason we don't need to bring in a consultant. We don't have to decide and figure out the strategic direction of the utility today. It's tweaks, it's what does the board want to do to build upon what we have. But the concept would be, if the board wants to develop some goals, maybe we sit down and have a specific board meeting to just focus on a set of goals. Again, I told Craig, I asked him to stop by and review some of this with him, review it with Perry, and from staff's perspective, these are very overarching goals. If the board would want to get more specific, I would encourage the board to lead quite a bit of that conversation, because any more specific than this, and I want staff to be participants, but I would be hesitant to dictate and propose too much. But I wanted to throw this out there as really a launching point for a conversation, get the brain, get everybody thinking about what are our big picture goals. So that's one piece of it. We could talk about structure. I think the action items list is a hodgepodge of operational, business goals, action plans, critical issues. I think that action items list, some of them are board purview, some are really business goals that I wouldn't want to keep from the board. I think it's important to be transparent in what we're doing, but some of the challenges that the board or the staff has, I have with the action items, is it's not necessarily reflective of our future. Sometimes it's reactionary, like some of the things I want to propose today, the updates, are things that we've already started and we need to be doing it. It's operational issues. Revamping our safety program is Ron retired. We can't wait till there's a review of the action items list to say, board, do you all approve of this? Because we need to do it. We need to do it. It's a business goal. It's what we need to be doing, but at the same time, it also furthers the overall mission of the utility, and it's substantial, so I think it's part of that handshake process between the ends and the means. So the thought would be, if the board wants to adopt a set of goals, what we would propose is kind of revamping the action items list and presenting them as a kind of layered under individual goals. So it'd be staff discussing and telling the board how what means we are using to advance the goals. What are we doing as staff to accomplish some of these goals that have set out, and we would just layer these initiatives under them. The other thing I do want to accomplish today that's kind of at the forefront is also reviewing the changes that we do want to make. I didn't want to assume that the board didn't want to wanted to do anything, so I wanted to go ahead and continue to move forward just like we do every other year, present changes to the action items list, have the most updated action items list so that it's up to date. If the board wants to do things, continue to restructure, we can layer in those up-to-date initiatives under those goals. But with that, I don't know where you want to start, if you want to talk structure, goals, action items.
Well, the one thing I would say that our strategic plan needs to be fluid. And what I mean by fluid is ever-changing. And so what we perceive for next year or the following year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, what I mean is fluid is because I'm seeing, listening, hearing, maybe I'm watching too much news, whatever. In the government, things are ever changing. Just in the state of Michigan alone, different congressmen are on different committees, different things. I'm watching the news tonight. EU, European Union, proposing by the year 2035, it will be illegal to sell new gas-powered automobiles. That is in law, set in California right now. By the year 2035, it will be illegal to sell gas-powered vehicles, new gas-powered vehicles in the year 2035. And it looks like there very well could be other states that adopt these. And so I think what I'm saying is, what we might propose today, we should be flexible enough to change tomorrow, because we're gonna, I think there is global warming, your carbon footprint, I mean, everything that's going on is going to be rapidly changing in the years to come. So that's kind of where I think we need to go through. Again, have a goal in mind, but not be so fixed, have such a fixation on that particular goal, because it certainly could change in a matter of a couple amendments.
Yeah, and there's talk at the state, especially with the major shift in the legislature at the state. There's going to be two sides of that coin. What we're hearing so far is there's going to be a lot of opportunities for betterments, a lot of investment done at the state, but we could have additional regulatory requirements that come down at the state level. So it's also why some of the board level goals are also very broad. The more defined a goal is, the more you get pigeonholed into a specific, lose track of the forest through the trees or whatever the saying is, but not right. No, we're close. That's why I try to do it wrong every time. Yeah.
I guess as we're going, I don't think a lot of our enablers, disablers, I don't think a lot of those things have changed. I don't believe our core values have changed. But I guess I'd like to get in, again, a limited amount of times because we don't want to drag these things out forever. I would like to see what you have in mind and what things have been accomplished, where we are with those things, because I think that will then lead us down the path.
And I also say that my review, there's a request to have some goals developed. I wanted to do that in conjunction with the strategic plan review. I can set all the goals I want for myself, and if the strategic direction doesn't align with that, which I think it will, but I will, depending on how everything, what's adopted today, I'll follow up with an additional, keep going, one more. Megan, keep going. There you go, new. But I will send out an additional communication to the board with the goals that I have established, kind of very broad goals for the next 3 to 5 years. But a lot of them are captured in here. So I'll start. Normally we have staff help with a lot of this. Casey was not able to attend. Ryan was not able to attend. So it's just Megan and I holding down the fort, so I'll run through this. I did include an additional summary, so if there's questions I think that summary answers a lot of basic questions. What changed here, why do you update the year, things like that, but I'll run through real quick. First one's just plan phase 2 of the east side feed. We've had to readjust our plans quite a bit. The cable under the river is over double what it cost to get under the river the last time, and has put a significant damper on our plans. So over the next year or so, while we're constructing the overhead portion of the new feed, we're going to be working with GRP to establish, all right, where can we strategically start voltage conversions, when can we, and some of them may be cost-based triggers. If the price of wire comes down to an acceptable level, or we're able to partner with another utility on a larger order, that may trigger the next phase. So we just want to have playbooks in the wing that we can pull the right one off the shelf when the time comes. So whether that's starting voltage conversions or continuing to bring the redundant feed in, really the majority of the value of the project is providing that redundant feed to the east side of town, but there's immediate benefits from starting voltage conversion. So we will, I've got to work closely with Ryan on that, and obviously I've not had the opportunity to work as closely with him over the last month as prior to that. So that's the first one. Valuation of DAFRONs and alternative software providers. Don't want to speak negatively of DAFRON by any means, but we have strategic goals and strategic growth that we want to accomplish, and we need to make sure that our critical partners line up with our growth goals and our expansion goal, not expansion, but development goals. And I can say that the time of use rate development has been monumentally frustrating to work with them on. I think there would be a resounding agreement from the office staff in working with DAFRON, but I don't. Also, that would be that might be the one task outside of normal routines that the office staff is able to take on the year that we switch, if we switch. So there is a very important due diligence period. I have experience with other softwares. DAFRON has unique challenges. So that's going to be a major goal of this year. Future staffing and development opportunities. This is kind of somewhat replaced individual development plans, but it's twofold. On the operations side over here, we've got some critical retirements coming up, and working with Ryan to identify core competencies and identify where, what are the major skill sets that these people who are retiring bring to the table and make sure we're replacing those. Also making sure we have, the apprenticeship program is a 4.5 to 5 year program, so things don't happen overnight, so we've got to plan long-term. So that's a lot of the needs, and then also development opportunities. Part of that's expanding core competencies. Part of that is in the office where we have an amazing office staff, and sometimes it's easy to lose perspective that the 3 frontline office staff combined have about 5 years experience in the utility industry. It's easy to forget that when they knock everything they do out of the park. But they also all joined the team during COVID and have had very limited opportunities to go network and see how things are done outside of Lowell. They know how we do it, and they're dang good at making sure we do it well, but want to get very strategic in the opportunities that we provide our staff to expand their experience and exposure and continue to develop them. So that's a longer term goal to deal with, again, some retirements and also intentional growth of very strong new team members. Expand energy smart programs. This is the old EWR energy optimization programs. One of the things that we found out as it's gone to as the law has sunset, whatever the term is for us, and we've brought more control in that we could be doing more. So we're looking at how do we expand opportunities to get more creative. Right now, there is no mandate for us, but the MPSC chairman, Chairman Scripps, had their first Senate or House Energy Committee meeting, and it came up 3 different times, reinstituting the energy waste reduction mandate for co-ops and munis. So whether it does come about or doesn't, we need to continue to make sure this program provides value. We're losing opportunities to take advantage of low-hanging fruit. Almost every light bulb out there is an LED. That was really the big low-hanging fruit for energy waste reduction. We're looking at this late summer, early fall, partnering with the Arbor Day Foundation to do a shade tree program. They have an energy saving trees program that has been very successful. Holland has actually done it for 5 years now, but it's a pretty interesting program. We actually met with them today, and I'm very encouraged. Looking at a smart home program, maybe, where we get into, like we have lighting kits, using technology-enabled energy savings, smart switches, smart plugs, just different smart devices to help, smart light bulbs, things like that to assist in energy waste reduction. One of the things that develop IT equipment lifecycle management plan. I kind of equate this to our equipment replacement plan. One of the things that I found when I came in here is there was a lot of equipment that we bought, knew it was there, knew it had a finite lifespan, and it was out there. And we knew it, yep, that server needs to be replaced, those computers, but there was no, how do we approach this? Where's the formality to it? And one of the things that's going to be more and more important as we continue to work with our new IT vendor is formality of our processes and visibility and information sharing. So just getting an equipment life cycle management plan in place. There's quite a bit of operational technology updates and upgrades. We have fallen behind on our SCADA system. We've fallen behind on our Yukon AMI system, and it's just, unless you're very intentional, it is very easy to fall behind in the software world. And there's not automatic updates, so we want to get on top of some of these updates quickly. And then the last one there is update and modernize comprehensive safety program. We've already started that and been working with Portland on that, and a new company called The Line LLC, which is a safety consulting firm. So again, those are the new goals. That was the biggest things that I wanted to highlight. In terms of updating goals, a lot of those are just updating timelines, providing redundant feed to kind of reflect the unknown. It's down the next one. It's all the new stuff's at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
That went up.
Yeah. So, again, just some updates. A lot of the information was included in the summary. The only real big change is that comprehensive preventative maintenance plan we want to replace with implement an asset and maintenance software solution. It's just the tool that we're going to use to formalize maintenance practices and things like that. GIS, we're still, some of the other changes that we're potentially considering will have impacts on GIS, so we've kind of hesitated to do too much there because we could run into stranded investments. Grant opportunities, just updates that the date was updated to reflect the IIJA timeframes. Customer survey, we're going to roll out a customer survey this year, but I added the plus because the new opportunity that APPA has presented will be an annual thing. So it will, once it's implemented, it'll eventually move to an ongoing annual survey. And then we don't need to talk about line shack, engine room, or soil gas mitigation. Soil gas mitigation is basically done. But line shack and engine room are in progress. Want to touch on some of the removals real quick. Paperlight inventory management system. Ultimately, we determined that the solution that was recommended to us did not provide operational benefits that warranted the time and cost to continue with that. It just doesn't work with the way we do things in our software. Individual development plans, lack of historical context on that is one of them. I think that came up last time. I think one of the board members, Andrew, you might have brought it up. I'm not sure what that means. And it was one of those things that I inherited, so I wasn't sure what that context was. Digitization of historic paper records. We want to remove that because we've done quite a bit of it, but it's really difficult to justify the time and cost to do something that doesn't necessarily do anything except for act as a house cleaning measure. We're required to keep documents, so I know there are solutions, and if we can, I've talked to you a little bit about going to paperless and some of the projects that you were involved in. And one day I think it's feasible, but from a strategic standpoint, I don't think it actually moves us forward strategically. This is the one that's, last one's a little more nuanced. It's fully funded OPEB plan. It's other post-employment benefits, and it's a liability that we carry somewhat similar to our pension liability. The biggest benefit, or the biggest difference is pension plans have a funding mechanism. Megan and I were talking about it. I don't know what the plan was, but there's no necessarily investment mechanism to fund a past liability that I'm aware of. With an OPEB plan, we are limited in what we can invest in, and we book the change in liability on the income. It's the income statement every year, and the actual benefits we plan for just like our benefits that we provide our employees. So it is baked into our annual budgeting process. So there's never really been any movement towards actually allocating funds, and does it make sense to allocate specific funds for a future benefit now when it fits into the annual budgeting process. So that was our thought process behind that one. Again, some of it is lack of historical context. Obviously, it's important to manage our OPEB liability, but we plan for it on an annual basis, and we don't future fund or fund in advance any other benefit that we provide an employee or a retiree. So.
Can you stay here for
Yeah.
a minute? So, when you speak of electronic paper light inventory management system, is that's what we were going to use out here.
We tried to.
So my question is, so certainly we learn different things. As a board member, I guess I'm just, so my question is, we bought an electronic system to do that. Did we get, so it costs us a bunch of money and we've just kind of scrapping it, saying it's not working for us.
Unfortunately, I wasn't here for the implementation, but we went to DAFRON. This is my understanding. We went to DAFRON and said, we want to do this. They said, you need to use this vendor. This is the vendor that integrates with us. It doesn't. I mean, Megan's worked on it for years.
Not the way that we use the inventory system for background. It just doesn't translate well.
So my question, I guess, and I'll agree. So how are we, I mean, are we talking about the same thing? We were talking about that out here we had all of our inventory and we take this magic line and this is going to this job and we go chink and then we go chink and it puts it and so it's not, we found that it's not working with DAFRON, with our software.
It doesn't accomplish what we intended to accomplish with it, is kind of the simple way. And it's something I know Megan worked on for years. Unfortunately, it was years trying to get this implemented and we talked about, we're gonna do it this year. We're gonna do it at this inventory cycle. We're gonna do it now. And it just doesn't work. It's more cumbersome and more costly to use it.
So is this another one of the issues with DAFRON besides, I mean, we're struggling with time of use? I mean, so what, I guess the point that I'm getting at is, as a board member, we always, we want to make the right decisions, you know, and when we approve something or this, and some other examples, you know, is when we bought the generator and went down to Texas and because we needed a black start and, you know, and everything and then either the board, we'll put it, we didn't have Casey on staff at the time. And maybe if we had Casey, and he would have said, no, this is not gonna work. I mean, we have, as a board, we have to be, good fiduciaries of our ratepayers' money.
And sometimes, you know, I think the board can make good decisions, but what happens is not even the fault of the staff necessarily, but in terms of something like the biodigester. We didn't get delivered what was promised. Right. And so I think the way we got there is we didn't have either the institutional knowledge on staff, or we didn't bring in an outside verification to tell us, is this going right? And I think if we know we don't have that in-house, we need to go out of house and start confirming things, because a lot of things are going through my head about things that have happened in the community. What we asked for, what we approved, and actually what we got. And it can be as small as, you know, the kinds of trees that were put down on Main Street. Or so,
Mention her coming down now, please.
yeah, I think as part of our strategic plan, and as far as maybe, fiscally responsible proactive, forward-thinking, quality service. One of these has to deal with, where am I going with this? Verification is the only word that
Informed
comes.
decisions.
Informed decisions.
Yeah, but that doesn't save you every time either. You're never gonna be infallible. We did that with that, we did all our due diligence with that internet shit over here, and then, oh, sorry. And then we had to have a huge joint meeting about it because they sold us something that isn't what they delivered, and that sounds like it's what happened here, is they told you it could do something it couldn't. You can't,
So
there's
I,
no strategic goal to avoid that 100%.
I guess, other than,
the problem, so one of the problem that I see that, you know, you look at root causes. You know, what's the cause? Were we given bad information? Yeah. But the root cause of this, in my opinion, is Daffron's reliance on third-party vendors. Period. We've got Invoice Cloud out there, who's part of the customer portal. That's been a great third-party partnership.
Except for the Apple Pay.
so.
Yeah, but they're still.
Okay,
but
but
that
I'm trying
brings up
to
problems.
identify at a board level, what is that? What are we missing?
There's, in this particular case, it's one of those things that you have to have, at some point in time, trust but verify. That's what this was, is we had trust in Daffron. We attempted to verify, ask them, show us how it's gonna work. You know, so there was a proof of concept that was presented to us. The board makes decisions a lot of times on proof of concept. You don't get the luxury of hindsight. So to the mayor's point, the vast majority of the time, proof of concept translates into a final product. There was a proof of concept on the biodigester, sorry. But there was a proof of concept. It was the actual execution. So
Yes.
to say that signing that deal was a bad
Going on the
decision,
best
board
information
decision.
you had at the time,
Yeah.
and it was, yes, it, on its
The
prima
once,
facie evidence, it was a proven
Here's the other
concept.
thing you gotta worry about, is when do you go from being cautious to being worrisome? And now your trust but verify has you all on edge and afraid to make a mistake. And now projects are taking 6 months or a year because Craig's, you know, I'm gonna talk to 2 or 3 more people in Perry, so I know somebody in Denver who uses this software. Now, at a once a month board meeting,
and what I would be, so I, to that
And
point,
that's the risk in that,
that's
you
the
know.
ledge you gotta be careful of.
and to that point, the energy industry, and to Perry's point earlier about legislation, you know, we are going through a rapidly changing industry. If we stall out on certain things, there are certain things that you just have to keep pace to change, and you have to make decisions based on the best information you have. I mean, not to say that this battery deal is a bad deal, but right now, I'm happy to stand behind this deal. The market could change and capacity could be garbage. But, you know, it could be, the value of it could drop significantly. That doesn't mean that the decision that the board made today was a bad decision.
And all the indicators in the industry are that this is the best thing to do. Now, the thing could go up in flames once somebody flips the switch.
And that's the same as this.
It's hilarious.
All indications were that this was the route we needed to go. We had a goal, and this was the means that was provided to us. But again, you go back to the root cause of Daffron doesn't develop in-house tools to make our lives more efficient. They rely on third parties. Now, our paperless AP process is through DocuWare, not through Daffron. Our inventory system was going to be through this company, not Daffron. Our payment processor behind the customer portal is not through Daffron, it's through Invoice Cloud. That is, when I say we need to evaluate Daffron, we need to make sure they have plans to develop in-house. Because when you rely on third-party integrations, the process takes 3 times as long, and it is never seamless because that third party is integrating with 5 or 6 different softwares or 10 different softwares, and you're never gonna hit all of them out of the park. So, I don't know, is that you lived through this struggle on this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Also, like I said, part of it is we use the inventory system in Chatham a little bit differently, and so it just didn't work for how we use it. Like, we don't use it incorrectly, we just use it differently. And I mean, it would be revamping our entire process to make this system work for us.
And that's the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all.
I also will say that the investment in that was a lot less than the file adjuster and the generator, so. Don't feel too bad.
One
But
thing
much less.
One thing I want to add, though, just kind of looking at the big picture here, and, you know, I'm noticing that the strategic plan was adopted in April of 2017. And from what I gather at that juncture in time, the utility was actually behind the curve on a lot of things it needed to do.
I would say in 17, we were on a really good path. I don't remember the timeline, but Steve had taken the helm
Or was that after?
in
Okay.
15 or 16, do you know?
Okay.
I want to say 15, middle of June, July 15.
Okay,
So I think we were on a pretty strong strategic direction.
At
when
that
this was
point,
about.
okay.
I know
Well,
this
that's
sort of
because, okay, but it ties into what I'm saying still. You had some pretty good leadership at the time, as far as a general manager, who helped give their stake and opinion in it to help guide the board.
Yeah. So it might have been
Well,
16,
when was this implemented?
17.
Yeah, but it's had.
And it's been reviewed.
Right, oh,
But
yeah, so
I
it would have
guess-
been Steve then, I'm just.
But I guess the point, broad brushstrokes I'm trying to paint here is that I think even since the strategic plan has been implemented, the utility's gotten closer to being on the curve of meeting our needs. And on the things that we are behind, we're just a little bit behind, but I think the goal of the strategic plan is to have us at least a little bit ahead of the curve on what we need to be doing.
I'll say, I mean, my general philosophy on the adoption curve is be an early adopter, but not a leading adopter.
Yeah.
As a small utility, and I can't remember the exact terms, but.
And the thing is I mean, like I said, I think we're doing that. We are in that process. You know, and I was just thinking the other day of some words that would describe this board and what it's been doing and what it's doing. And I would describe it as prudentially progressive. It's prudent to the degree it needs to be, but looking for, you know, the next step, the next way. So, I just had to, I don't know, pontificate or something. But I mean, that is I guess what I'm trying to talk about is the bigger picture things that we as a board should be looking at, thinking about, processing, and reconsidering some of any changes.
So I'll do a quick review of the completed and items moved to ongoing list. Demand response program was wrapped up this year. We did a presentation on that. I'll say with Emily coming on board, we worked on a just general social media marketing strategy, just a general framework that I would definitely not call it comprehensive, but a lot of, you know, it's a living document. Everything's going to grow, but really a lot of the intention was to establish kind of guardrails, and I continue to work with her on different things. We work together as a group, the office works together, but we really established some boundaries and direction for what we want to accomplish with our social media and marketing efforts. We developed a new 5-year rate plan. I moved the business continuity and disaster response plan to a completed item because there was never necessarily a concrete in that one. Kind of the last big piece was getting the generator out here, and I'm a little presumptuous in the fact that it's not sitting there. But it's been ordered, it's the prep work's been done.
And delayed.
It's just been delayed, just like everything else in the world, so,
When you say business continuity, what does that mean? To you.
Like, like if we lose a GM, we lose Ryan, we lose Casey, we lose.
it's that, or, I think a lot of it came out of COVID. And how do you keep your business operating in the face of something unexpected? How are you resilient?
I know when we talked about it, Steve was here, that was part of it.
Oh.
I was putting into it as well. What you're talking about is also.
All right, and that's where I didn't have the historical context on that, so it's kind of a ambiguous kind of end goal, so.
And the reason why I asked that, and I guess I asked it in that fashion, because I wanted to make sure we were all on the same plane. Is there, the thing that I have always wanted, and hopefully it's someplace, is there a hard copy of a continuity plan? I mean, or is there, so that something happens to you, or God forbid, 2 or 3, you're at a convention or something, and 2 or 3 of you, something happens. Is there a written down continuity plan that is someplace in our office that a board member or the third in command or whatever can open it up and continue on with Lowell Light and Power?
No, there is not.
Okay.
In order to do that, I think we're back, and if the board wants to, we're happy to do it, but I think that's a facilitated process. That's a consultant-related process to guide that. That's a very specialized type of plan and document to actually create a all-encompassing, essentially the entire staff could get wiped out and you could bring in a replacement staff and say, here. That would be the amount of task-related instructions, like just the instructions that would have to be written down to process bills would take Megan, how long do you think it'd take you to draft that? 20 hours? 15, 20 hours. So you think about paying bills, paying payroll. In order to really create what are the core functions, pay bills, pay people, process jobs, take phone calls, open accounts, close accounts, bill, all these, there's pieces, everything could be pieced together, I think. I would say that the better approach to a continuity plan would be adopting policies that limit the potential for all management to leave. And a lot of utilities have this. MPPA, no two senior executives are allowed to travel together. Holland, I know, has a policy that no 2 senior executives are allowed to travel together. And the intention is to help minimize the likelihood of multiple high-level employees unfortunately being killed at the same time. I would say that is a probably better approach because
Or maybe just getting stuck in the snow bank.
Well, we have it, you can't have,
phone call fixes a lot of that. But, I think what we've dealt with over the last month is a lot of, the term stepping up really took on a new meaning this past month. Because there's a reason why the phrase isn't step down. And you don't fill a position downwards typically, you ask somebody, and I think about the board, it would be a monumental task for a board member to step in to a day-to-day. It would be more feasible to ask a manager to step up. And again, that really took on a different, I've had new thoughts over the past month, obviously, about, unexpected events creating major disruptions and critical staff.
So
availability.
I'm really not thinking of necessarily like a board member having to run the operation or anything, but of knowing, calling, well, probably the first call would be MPPA, but you'd be calling like Zealand, can you come over, can you come over and give us a day or give us one day a week to get us through this, some kind of mutual.
Mutual aid at the the executive level, not the operations level. Yeah, and again, I would say that planning for, that would, again, we'll go with the snowbank. Two, myself and somebody else stuck in a snowbank. The answer is, say Ryan, or Casey and myself got stuck in a snowbank. The answer is Megan, Julie, and Ryan.
Yeah.
They would initiate phone calls to MPPA, to MMEA, and it would immediately turn into a full 40-member support situation. So while having a playbook would be great, I think we need to take steps to not ever need a playbook. I don't know, but I'm like I said, I'm open to whatever discussions, because it's very important. But like I said, one of the things that I've definitely focused on is how do you fill in. I think the more likely outcome is one critical executive level employee. It needs to be removed for whatever reason. It could be a medical issue. It could be just a car wreck that has them in the hospital for a week, 2 weeks. Something. There's a lot more circumstances a lot more likely circumstances that would remove a single individual than the entire executive team. And even if the entire executive team, there's enough at that point, MMEA and PPA is going to be reaching out to somebody. Because Katie has contact information for you, for for the mayor, for there's two-way communication. So not only is it we know who to call there, they know who to call here.
And even if it's just a plan of something happens here, who do we, as a board, who do we put our faith in or our support in saying that, okay, Julie, Megan, and Ryan, something happens to the general manager, these three positions are going to step in on an interim basis or what.
So
because I guess I'm gonna guess, but I really wouldn't know that Ryan would know everything that you do, and the same thing that Megan and Julie might not know everything. I mean, I think it would have to be, if it was this position, I think it would, if we knew that it was a combination of these three people that need to step up.
And so I think we can also address some of that with some policy, if we want to look at some additional governance policy. Just stealing from MPPA. MPPA has a policy that every time the CEO travels, he names a successor in case there's a plane crash. in case there's a catastrophic event. He gets stuck in a snowbank for people that like sunshine and roses. No, something catastrophic happens. He does name,
He's in a
so
coma in a snow.
I mean, I personally-
Normal.
Not all sunshine.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Got some
yeah.
dirt.
Very gray rainbows.
Yeah.
But, so we could look at additional, I think we can address a lot of those through through policy discussions. I'll be honest, I will have to dig in. And I'm probably gonna call Dave Coster and pester him, because he made all of us commission members that we went through about 5 hours of governance policy review this year. It was every meeting we reviewed in detail, numerous policies on the governance and a lot of different policies, so.
Okay.
He's the
I
expert.
mean, I just, I guess that's one thing that I worry about.
Yeah,
I also think to that point there, we do like, having 2 people that can sign off on checks, like when
Right.
when we update those as a board, when we stay on top of those are kind of, I think, things that, that help policy wise, and then, retraining somebody to be behind Casey to help with generators, things like that we've been, I guess,
Right.
maybe it's hard to quantify those in like that.
yeah, we're working.
But I feel like we're on top of them, it's just.
Well, it's, my,
Having like it
Well, my-
somewhere writing would be.
well, my point is like, okay, the general manager and so the employees know, like, who needs to step up and this and that, but if the board doesn't know, I just, it's,
So I would also say even in that event, let's say the board's responsibility still is to,
Yeah, we just talk to anybody who.
well, and it's the general manager's position. So the key is, at that point, if something catastrophic happens to me, catastrophic happens to one of the managers, that's my
That's
concern. And I've got to have those operational plans and things in place. So really it's about, does the board have a continuity plan? Is there a continuity plan for my position,
Right.
direction for the board? And I think, again, we can go through, if we just implemented a policy that I name a successor, should something happen to me, then the board at least has an interim. I think no matter what, the board will have quite a few decisions to make.
right. Okay,
Well,
Let's move on.
It's a morbid conversation.
The idea is to put
Well,
somebody terrible
light coma.
underneath you,
Like.
so they never wanna get rid of you. I can get rid of me, but this Craig's up next here.
All right, so e-bill marketing, I want to highlight this one a little bit. The office staff did an absolutely phenomenal job, knocked that one out of the dang park. So I moved Explore Economies of Scale between Light and Power and the Water Department to complete it. It didn't come to fruition, but Mike and I, with retirements at the city, really explored it, and ultimately he had other needs that he was going to have to work through, so it wasn't going to create the benefits on the city side that originally at surface level you hope to accomplish. So for now, that is completed. And then we also started a pre-K kindergarten, ended up being a first grade program, but the goal was to have another touch point for engaging with youth of the community, introduction to a little bit of electric safety and introduction to who Light and Power is. And I can attest that it works, and it made an impression. I had 4 8-year-old girls in my house for a sleepover last Friday, which was torture. But they all said, "You're the guy from Lowell, Light and Power. Don't fly a kite near power lines. Like, listen, don't play on transform. Don't play on the green boxes." So it was comical. It was the only comical part of the night, but what's that?
I can't believe that was the only comical.
It was something. But those are the proposed changes. I'm happy to go into any more detail. The one, like I said, the one action that I would request the board make is if that's what they choose to do, or if you all choose to continue with this, it is staff's recommendation to approve the changes as presented. And then other than that, we would just be looking for guidance on how the board would like to carry on the next piece of the conversation. And again, we can push that till next month to whatever extent the board wants.
I'm fine with pushing it. Routine.
Push and have a discussion
Yeah.
on the goals itself.
I mean, just kind of, and the whole thing, I mean, we're just wading into it, we got an idea of what changes came along, which is part of what I think we like about the process as a board, but, you know, I mean, we talked about changing the level at which our package goes into detail.
Yeah.
How much of this is actually stuff that you need to keep track of more than we need to be involved with, and maybe you just report it up on occasion versus us really being down in there. So
And
like I'd move towards that honestly, but I would like, I mean, I'm good to wait until at least Tina's back in the room.
And have a full conversation. And I think that got to your point a little bit, and it was, last year you'd mentioned the ongoing items. You know, how do we do, like, if it's ongoing, it's something that we do, is it a strategic, and it highlights some of the challenges with the way that our structure works now, is once they're ongoing, the board just has an expectation that we're doing it, and that's a fair expectation, unless I come to you and say, we're gonna stop doing that, this was a strategic initiative, this was the circumstances when we started it, they're no longer the circumstances, we're gonna stop. But in a lot of those ongoing things are very much, they further strategic goals, but they're very operational in nature. Annual review of the risk matrix. The board says you guys need to stop doing that. We don't approve of that. Well, that's an operational thing. We need to be doing that. Which granted the board would never, it's a hyperbolic example, the board's never gonna do that, but it does highlight that there's certain elements of the structure that, do they make sense to be presented at a board level, or is it a report to the board instead of getting feedback from the board?
Yeah, I think it's something I mentioned before is that, you know, there should be sometimes goals that would launch a ongoing thing. You know, like the new portal, right, or something like that. So, but once it's launched, then it's not something, we don't need a goal that says maintain an e-portal. I mean, that'd be,
Continue to do what we've already done.
right.
We're gonna
But to
continue
get
to
to
market.
start a new routine thing, that takes effort. But once it's in place, I mean, it still takes effort, but it's a different kind of effort.
It goes back to, I think you mentioned this earlier, it's like, there are actually two sheets that we need to have. A board's ends, I guess, maybe, you said it maybe a different way, but there's the action items that you have as, a team. And we are not necessarily involved in all of that. And
But I kind of think the thing we'd want to think about before we talk next time is like, is kind of that the yellow level of the pyramid. That dotted yellow line that was there, I mean, I don't know why I remember all this, but that line is sort of like the key part, right? It's trying to figure out what level we need to be at to, right? And-
It's these are exclusively the board, kind of. I mean, granted, it's
Yeah.
board with stakeholder involvement. These are staff, but it's this section here,
Yeah.
and that dotted line, like you said, goes right through the middle.
Right,
How-
but I think the key thing is that the line is gonna be wavy, right? Sometimes the board's gonna have to push a little harder and say, oh, look, we really want you to do this. But as long as we're not making it blue, right, on the pyramid. And the same thing, sometimes I think the staff needs to push and say, look, board, we really need to do this. And they need to kind of bend that line upward a bit. But I think we just need to think about, in our current plan, which of these things really belong as goals versus directives. I know that in past discussions on this plan, I think we've always kind of said that, well, this enablers, disablers, how is that helpful? I mean, that list can be infinite if you really wanted to think about it.
yeah.
And then there was like the strategies versus the, I forget what the other one was, goals or something.
Core values, and you've got,
And then strategies, I think one of them was like the same, like I forget what it was.
Yeah,
Fiscal responsibility, it was like in this in both of them or something.
yeah.
And it's like, okay, what if these aren't really accomplishing what they meant to in the first place, but, I mean, I like this pyramid, it's one way of laying it out. But I think we just need to make sure that, and then what got me thinking about that, or a good example, as you mentioned at the beginning of all this, Charlie, that, like, well, we never would have anticipated needing this safety, program goal. And it's like, well, that's part of one of our strategic directives, is that safety is always a priority.
Yeah.
But it's always gonna be something we do, and so you as a staff says, hey, when our key safety guy retires, we develop a plan to figure out the next
Yeah.
thing that we're gonna do, that used to be Ron was the thing we had to maintain, right? And now it's something else.
That's pretty fantastic.
But that's,
you're
and so
hitting,
it doesn't change our strategy. It's just you're saying, look, we're gonna meet that in a different way.
and that's where I think it makes sense for us to report that, hey,
I like that.
Yeah.
you have this goal of, and safety falls under fiscal responsibility, care for, I mean, it falls under a lot of different things, but we would, and that's where I think it makes sense for us to report to the board. I think it's important for the board to know what we're doing. So I don't wanna say, hey, let's stop reporting, let's stop providing the same level of information, but I just think, there's something about, I think that action items list has morphed into a combination of critical issues, strategic directives, business goals, and action plans.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of how it started, right? Is I think when you don't have a very, proactive members of staff in some cases, right, or that sometimes boards start to feel the need to micromanage, or sometimes it's a board just gets excited and they micromanage even if you're proactive. But I remember when I first joined the board, I think we had this basic framework of the strategic plan, and it was always kind of, as you described it, this hodgepodge, right, of goals, strategies, actions. But I think it was because there was times when the board said, look, we want this thing to happen. And then when we started having a couple of those on there, now it's like, well, everything else needs to kind of be that specific to kind of match that. And I think that's where we just need to be aware that we don't need that, but sometimes we do. We have to. Because, like you said, the DAFRON thing, I mean, that was a goal of being, the goal was to kind of have this electronic inventory, but that really wasn't our directive, right? The directive, or maybe it was, but it should have been something more along the lines of just be more efficient, right? Improve how we do our internal operations, reduce headaches and.
I would say that's a goal,
Yep.
implementing.
Finding a way to empower the staff to drive continuous improvement, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
But if that line's gonna be wavy, which I think it should, I think you're absolutely right. There has to be an understanding between you guys and Charlie and Ryan and Megan and whoever, that if you start to get too far down in that wave, they're gonna say something.
Yeah.
And if you think they're getting too far up in that wave, you guys gotta say something, but it can't affect the next wave. Like Charlie has to be able to tell you guys, you need to back off on this one. But you can't hold it against him when he tries to push you on the other one. And the same with you guys, you can't say, well, we told Charlie to do this and it worked really well, so now we gotta pull our wave down farther into their pool. You'll end up just impossible to work
That's a
together.
great group.
And then you're gonna undo all the good that I think you guys have done
Yeah.
already as a board and a
17
staff.
million.
If you can seamlessly move through Sharon leaving, seamless, Ron leaving, seamless, that means the wave is right where it needs to be at. If you start pushing that wave too far in each direction, it can get
Yeah. Like the
counterproductive.
I've never heard anybody use that. I've sat through a lot of government's been a big thing the last couple of years. I think that's the most accurate description of how that line needs to go. And I think there's something to be captured in there of, the board pushing downward, staff pushing upward, and finding a balance
Mhm.
on issue to issue. And it goes to your point, is that line may be higher on one topic, that line may be lower on another, where the board
At a
wants.
certain point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it could
so,
change, but
You
like,
just gotta be comfortable
I'm
enough with each
pushing
other to
down.
say it's too askew.
But we're like,
well,
Let's
so,
go.
we really want.
yeah,
I
that's
think a
good.
good example, right? I mean,
But there might be like batteries, you guys are like, finishing it up.
Yeah.
but this is something we need to shore up.
So
I think-
therefore,
That's what I'm saying, a good example was Charlie kind of pushing back on the continuity plan, right?
Mhm.
The continuity plan doesn't need to be a handbook of how to do everyone's job, but it does just need to be a, what do we do?
Yeah, it
What's
goes
the
back
next
to
step?
what,
Like, what are the
what's,
first 3 steps that we do, you know, so it's, right, somebody get a hold of Megan and she'll figure out the rest, or, you know. she
you
tries-
can pay, you're the person.
24
But
hours
that's
a
like,
day.
but that's the point, right, that's where it starts, it's like, you're gonna name somebody, I'm just gonna say Megan because she's here, right? And, but then, it's like, okay, someone notify Megan, then she's got a list of, okay, I better go call Ryan and call whoever else.
Or she's got a backpack and she gets on a plane and you
Yeah,
never see her.
and then she, yeah.
Because you don't pay her
and then
enough
she
to
runs
deal
away.
with this.
So I would also say the continuity plan is a means, not an end.
Yeah,
So how do you craft, what's the, goes back to engineers love the term root cause. But
yeah,
favorite term,
that's like,
what's the root of it? What, ask, or, you know, the game of 7 whys or whatever. You
Yeah.
ask yourself why
I
7
agree.
times, you start to get to the root of what you're actually trying to accomplish. So,
okay, we gotta move on, because,
we got a long meeting.
well, because Megan's gotta get home, it's
She got a little, she
it's
got
got Valentine's Day.
that little bug of yours is gonna be asleep by the time we get home.
Yep, hopefully.
Hopefully.
So I think, in general,
Well,
wanna come back
Yeah.
to this.
I would ask the board to go ahead and take action if you're comfortable with the action items presented. That way we can get that updated, that framework can serve as the framework for future conversations. We may scrap some things and say that's not a goal, but, or if the board doesn't see any need to move on with that, then.
Send the pyramid out for reference.
I'm looking at you.
Pyramid.
I want that pyramid.
I'll send that.
Oh, you wanna do it?
If we move on the action items or not.
Charlie, you wanna do it or you want me to do it?
Charlie.
Oh, you're gonna email?
Yeah, I can do it.
So, thank you.
That's my
Andrew, you
first
want
thing.
to?
What?
I don't think those things
Yeah,
like Charlie's
Charlie's
hand
hand
record before more than ours, so I don't even
Right.
want to take action on it personally. That'd be my vote, so, but I'm not gonna move that.
I wanna do what is a pleasure of the board. For the lack of better terms. That's what I hear a lot, I laugh every time I hear it.
Paperless inventory system, let's get it. At all costs.
So, do you want,
So is there action that we need?
Well, Daniel, I think,
I think these action items, what I said was, I think they're the purview of Charlie and below, almost entirely. There's things that we want to push down to time of use and things like that, where we're like, hey, we give direction, but like, that, therefore, like, I'm okay with what all that came through there, I just don't wanna move on it. I wouldn't move on it as a board member, because I don't wanna be doing that anymore. I think my lean is to probably adjust our strategic
So-
planning document.
and I agree,
Right.
I agree with that, and we've talked before. I think we have a strong board, and I think we have a strong general manager. If we had a weak board and maybe a strong general man, then, or vice versa, or if we had a weak, general manager, then we'd want more control or more input, not necessarily more control, but more input. But I think because we have a strong board and we have a strong general manager, I would agree with you, Daniel, that,
Yeah, and that's the same conversation I got into with Charlie the other day. I'm like, this stuff is really your burden, you know, I mean, this stuff.
so,
I want you to keep that,
Our board
something
gets-
similar like that,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's all I'll need is just look at it on occasion and bring up what we're
we can
moving.
turn it into an update, an informational item, periodic informational item to review strategic initiatives.
and,
So in other words, just by, you're saying by consensus, we're saying, hey, look, we like what you've done with the action items.
And we don't.
Thanks for the report out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
exactly.
think that's fine,
That's
I
cool.
think our strategic plan ends at page 5, I don't think it goes
We
past
have
that,
no issues
honestly.
with it.
At the most,
okay,
we're doing that, you know.
the one last thing I just wanted to point out to the newest members. So until Greg Pierce came, Lowell Light and Power never had a strategic plan.
Yeah.
So this was, and my point being is, this has been, I think, as long as, Lowell Light and Power, there's some discrepancies, was founded in 1896. I just saw something that said it was 1895, whatever the case may be. It's relatively a new document.
So I guess,
Are you saying you remember that?
so we did have a,
Huh?
Are you saying that you remember that day?
so we did have a strategic.
Yeah, I remember that day.
I would say normally.
Kelso would say.
So Perry, what you're saying is we did have a strategic plan before this. This is just an upgrade. from
These are
our
upgrades, these are upgrades, this is
Strategic
an upgrade, but my point is, low light and power,
Probably needed something like this.
we
then.
didn't have a strategic, written down strategic
Right.
plan until, and Greg came, and that was in the early 2000s.
Okay.
He worked, I would have to go back, but,
I got the
he was
files.
at Traverse City in 2003, so after that.
Yeah.
So my point being is, this is a relatively new document in the whole span of low light and power.
And I guess that was the point that I'm trying to make. I mean, that I have seen the positive change begin at some point. I don't have the demarcations of all of that. But where we are now is a result of this. And aren't you the chairman that suggested we do or started to work with Pierce on the strategic plan? I mean,
No, so I might have said something, but, Greg Canfield, until he resigned and went to the city council, Greg was, so Dave Austin, when I was first on the board, Dave Austin was the chairman, and then he resigned because he felt there was a conflict, because he worked with Williams and Works, and the city had contracts. Then after that, it was Jim Mottman was the chairman, and then it was Greg Canfield. Even though that Greg was new to the board, previous general manager and I didn't see eye to eye on quite a few things, and so it was in the best interest to have Greg as the chairman.
It's a very polite way of saying he was basically terrible at his job.
No, it was just, we had,
okay.
I'm not on the board, I can say that. Greg Pierce was the worst, I'm not on this board.
no, listen, I'm not talking Greg Pierce, I'm talking before that.
Oh, I have no comment about
Okay.
that.
So
I have
there's,
no comment about before that.
so anyway, so it wasn't, so I don't recall whether I was helped implement, again, I helped implement because I was a board member
Right.
at that time, but, no.
But also, in the last 10 years, this industry has grown probably more than it did in the previous 100 where you didn't have a
Well,
strategic
yeah, I
plan.
mean, at every
Because it was put up the
conference
pole
I
and
went to,
shovel the
it's,
coal. Now
yeah, exactly. It
everything
was,
it's different every
Yeah.
day.
Okay, moving on, east side feed overhead, portion construction bid acceptance.
All right, so we will, as the board's aware, we've pushed out the actual construction service, the construction of the pole line to serve the east side feed out a little bit. It allowed us to open up obviously we did it because of inflation. Construction estimates were through the roof. So what we did was provided a much longer construction window, hoping that it would provide advantageous pricing. But we pushed it out into the fiscal year 2024 budget. Nice thing is it gave us the opportunity to approve bids prior to the budget process, so we'll be able to budget for an exact number, which is nice. But if you'll scroll down to the next page, Megan, just as a reminder, this is kind of the path of the pole line. Goes up Jackson, makes the turn on north, and runs over to Lafayette, where it'll pick up or interconnect with the 1247, the upgraded voltage on that side that goes down to feed Atwood. But What's being considered tonight is just the construction service to build the line. All the materials have been ordered and are arriving. There's a big pile of them over there. So this is just the process to approve the construction bids. As you can see from this, we've used GRP and partnered with GRP Engineering for the engineering services on this project. Included in that engineering service is basically bid management. Michael from GRP issued the bid documents in conjunction with our review. We sent out bids to 4 contractors, received a no bid notice from 1 contractor, and then received 3 competitive bids on the rest of the work. Low bid came in from Newkirk Electric at $160,000 and $160,090. That was low bid, and it is our recommendation to approve the low bid from Newkirk. Michael reviewed the bid for completeness, and it is a complete bid and met all the bid specs. So coming in significantly under the construction estimate, and based on his experience and his review, it appears, nobody said anything concrete, but it appears the longer construction window led to some advantageous pricing. But the construction window is from July. The project cannot start till after July 1st. Has to be completely finished by April 1, 2024. So, and again, we'll use this as a basis for voltage conversion, and then also from the south side at about Front Street, we'll start burying stuff and go underground and move the river to the dependable gas property.
This is just the major line to connect to, I mean, we're not at, houses and everything along the way are not connecting to that.
No, they will connect to it. Any transformer that's on those poles, it will connect to that, but we're still discussing the best way to energize it. We will most likely energize it at the reduced voltage. And then we can't really use it as a basis for voltage conversion yet, or it will serve as the foundation for voltage conversion, but we need to convert some of the other side streets and taps that come off of this line to the upgraded voltage before we can actually energize at the new voltage.
And some of these questions we probably should have asked before and not, but, so one of my questions is, because I think some of the public's going to ask, why are we, because of what we did in Valley Vista,
Why would we go underground there and overhead here?
Yes.
So one of it is this is the main feed. This is the main trunk line that is going to be the backbone of this circuit connecting 204 to the other side of the river. Ryan would be better knowing the details. But with it being the main line, and then also cost. Cost is, and it's going to be very challenging to convert large sections to underground over there. There is a lot of stuff in the ground. In areas where, like Lafayette, we stay under the sidewalk typically. We're not going to the sidewalk anymore. That plan changed last year when consumers ripped up everything and basically occupied the space that we had intended to occupy. So we're going to have to evaluate: do we want to be in the road? What space can we use? But with this being the main line, there's an existing pole line through the vast majority of it. There's very minimal right-of-way work that's necessary. And the difference is dock addition was rear easement, very difficult to maintain. So we're either going to have to construct in a new location on the road or go underground, because with your rear easements, we couldn't get to our poles, we couldn't manage the trees. Here, this is a much more cost-effective way, and it's maintainable and can provide the reliability that our customers count on.
Next question, are we duplicating poles, or will there be poles that are removed and everything's going to be put on the new pole?
Both. depends over time.
Okay.
We have limited ability to control what AT&T does. The intention is to, like right now, going down Jackson, there's some areas where there's a pole line right out by the road. Our poles are 7 feet further into the property. Those will consolidate, and there will be one pole line, but you may have what you call double wood for a period of time, because we cannot move other attachments.
Without what, a year's notice?
I'd have to look at individual contracts, but we're basically at there's different contracts, we don't,
Okay.
there's some issues, but the intention will be a single pole line. It just may take some time to get there, to work with joint attachers to get everybody over onto the new poles.
Is there a lot of tree trimming and things that are gonna have to happen for this new line?
Very little. There was a section that everyone's aware of on the corner of Jackson and North. That's the corner that we wiped out. We clear cut that. Used the forestry mulcher out there, cleaned it up. The city's going to help us maintain it. But there's a few trees, but the project was designed to minimize how much trees are needed to be cut. Everything's going to be Hendrix wire, which is what we run down Bowes Road. So you can go a little bit higher. Well, the plan is the poles will all be taller, so it'll get higher above the canopies. There are some there's maybe 1 or 2 trees. I can't speak factually, but there's minimal tree trimming effort, and all tree trimming effort will be coordinated with landowners.
Okay, so will all landowners that where this line is going, will they be contacted before the construction
Yeah.
takes place?
The intention will be to either send out a mail, just to give them a heads up. You're gonna see contract crews in the area, this is what they're doing, this is why they're doing it, and this is the time frame that you can expect to see them.
So, okay, so the other is, I would, like to see a bullet points for some of the things that we just discussed for the board members, so that if somebody asks me or asks Daniel, and going, why is this going in here? Why, that we at least have some knowledge and can say, we'll have somebody get in touch with you, or this is the reason why. I mean, or, huh?
I'm just a pizza guy.
You're just.
I just work on this truck, that's what I say, if anyone asks me anything.
But,
Yeah, and I would say the more generic that a board member can be in providing answers,
Correct.
Yeah.
typically the better it is, but obviously we can pull together some stuff, and I'll work with Ryan over the next, luckily, this project's not gonna start before July 1,
I
obviously.
know Tina's gonna get 20 questions, probably, but
Yeah, she will,
she would be at the fence immediately.
exactly. Luckily, they're up off the end.
She passed away, so she's gonna have to find a new neighbor that comes over.
Okay, yeah, and we don't anticipate the construction to start until the fall. One of the reasons we got advantageous pricing is this is kind of I wanna say, it's not a gravy job, but a lot of what contractors do is very much off-road.
Yeah.
And they reserve the off-road work for the summer when it's dry, and my guess, they haven't told us, obviously we haven't awarded the bid, so we've not talked with the low bid yet. We just have received their bid.
I watch you.
But yeah, I would say that they're probably looking at the fall to start, so we'll work on that between now and the start of the project.
They're on 28th Street today.
Newkirk?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
with some tall bucket trucks. They're way up in the air.
Oh, they've been working on that transmission line that runs from Patterson, Spalding area. I don't think they've been working on hanging some fiber on the static.
I have one question on it.
Yep.
What do you think, why do you think those bids came in, that bid came in? I mean, 12,000 less than Kent Power, it's like, whatever, 6%, 7%, but like 60 grand less than 218. Why such a difference if it's? Well, I mean, just opinion.
Yeah, if
So
it's all
everybody gets
standards, how can it be, yeah.
That, and one of the things is how much time they put into it.
The low bid here, talking with Michael, and I asked him, can we get good pricing, where are we at? You know, why the difference, all this, and he said that coming in, he expected Newkirk to be the low bid. And it's a product, you go through a lot of there's a lot of things. You go through work cycles where, you know, different internal strategies, how aggressive do you want to be in getting the jobs, how set is your work already for the summer? Do you care if you get it? Are you trying to expand your territory? So I'd say some of the bids focus, some of those companies focus further north, and this would be a venture south a little further. So my guess would be they threw out that price saying, it's not in our wheelhouse, but if we get it at this price, great. Where I think low bid, to no coincidence, asked the most questions, really dug into the project and said how, you know, asked really nuanced questions. They sharpened their pencil, and I think they wanted the job. So they really understood what their costs were, where another company might have looked at it and said, let's just go with the standards.
Sure.
Let's just say, yep, a 3-phase transfer, $1,000. This company looked at it and said, what's involved in that transfer, in that transfer, in that transfer, and said, I can do that one. Instead of saying $1,000 a piece, I can do that one for $450, that's $750, that one's $350, let's average it, and this is now the price of it. So I think that's a lot of it. So I'd say high bid, from my understanding, I'm not as familiar with that company, they do more work up north. Newkirk has been very aggressive in this area. And has gotten a lot of work, and it just depends. Honestly, a lot of it probably depends on what big contracts do they have, what consumers contracts do they have that's really their bread and butter, that's the $20-30 million a year, whatever it is. I don't know what scale.
There's a lot of philosophies. I mean, driving around, I see Newkirk trucks in this area a lot, just like today. There's a whole bunch of trucks on 28th Street that are working. You also have company philosophies, I'm not saying in the power, but just in companies like, this is our territory, and I don't want C&C in my, I don't want Lowell to see C&C, and I don't want somebody from Portland see C&C here or whatever. So you'll see companies that will
Get tighter in their
bids that they want to control this area. And when you're riding around, you see at least, I mean, I would see North Kent Power sometimes, but recently in the last few years, you just see a lot of Newkirk trucks in this area.
Newkirk and the Heidecker Wheatley. There's a no bid. I've seen a lot of their trucks lately. Well, I've been here 2 years.
Yeah, but if you low bid a couple, and then your trucks are parked outside, you got 3 days of the area free advertising. So then and also that a high bid could just be, look, we're having trouble getting workers, we're busy for the summer, if we're actually gonna do this, I'm gonna have to pay overtime and travel.
Yeah.
Here's what it's gonna take, 60 grand or whatever it is. But
And that's where we actually talked about another one. There was a project that GRP helped bid that was, I think their construction estimate was like $300,000-400,000. It was a bigger project. It was a boring project. It was about $300,000-400,000 boring project, and their low bid was like $115,000. They didn't accept it because there was something missing. So that's when you see these massive, like, you can't possibly do it for that much. But this seemed to be, and I'm limited in my exposure to bid openings for projects like this, and previously we did quite a bit. We had a bigger staff, and we were able to do more in-house, but we weren't so big that we needed contractors. We fell in a nice little weird spot. But this seemed to be a very normal spread of bids. Talking with, even if you look at a percentage of, 60,000 to 160 is a big percentage.
Yeah. Yeah, but 12,000 between the bottom two, not, I mean, you're like, oh, those two are in line, the other one's just kind of maybe out because it's, yeah.
And I will say that they didn't even submit their bid, correct?
Yeah,
So I think they included in their original price, owner furnished materials. So we opened the package and it looked like their bid was actually like $360. Well, you really dug in, so they didn't sharpen their pencil, they didn't really dive into the project as much as some of the other ones.
gotcha.
All right,
I'm good.
I'll entertain a motion to, on the overhead portion construction bid,
So moved.
and that be Newkirk,
Newkirk, yes.
support.
Supported.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Again, we move the closed session down to the end, so we're on to informational items.
You may run with this, Megan?
Go for it, you're doing great.
So I won't spend much time on this. Again, this is really a lot of informational items. Please review this. The two items I will bring to your attention are days of cash. We actually didn't finish the year nearly as bad as I expected on days of cash. I think some of that's a timing issue. I think that actual number was closer to 108, 109. But the way that the audit works, it just didn't capture some of the timing base. So obviously, the board is aware of our focus on cash management and getting that corrected. The other number that fell short of the target was rate of return. And the only comment I would have about rate of return is good number to track, but it will very rarely dictate, be the sole determinant of rate increases, things like that. So all in all, for as challenging of a year last year was, some of the financial indicators turned out to be pretty all right. The days of cash being the big one, but again, we made great investment into our plant. Depreciation percentages is staying down. So good. All in all, not too terrible. Happy to answer any questions. I know I'll probably defer to Megan. All right, hearing none, we'll roll on to updated financial forecast. Again, this is a lot of informational items, and I would ask that everybody, I'll kind of give the broad strokes. If you have more questions, please follow up with me. But what we did was, following the rate increase that was implemented in January, went into effect in January, the massive changes in our purchase power expenses. Wanted to just kind of pull out the big numbers and see where does it look like we're going to stand for the end of the fiscal year. So you can see, I'll focus on the right line, the change. Operating revenues are projected to go up significantly. That's two pieces. That's the PCA and the pressure from our power costs going up. It's also from the rate increase that was effective in January. Purchase power expense. So I look back a little bit on purchase power expense to see how we got to where we are. So we started the draft budget process with a forecast of 4.4 million for our purchase power. That was at the draft budget. That's roughly what we put in the draft budget. Between the draft budget and the final budget, we received 3 additional forecasts. One as low as around 4.1 million. None of them higher than 4.4 million. We budgeted what we thought was a conservative amount and put about an extra $250,000 in there, and bumped up the budget to 4.65 million. About midsummer, we received updated forecasts that showed a revised projection of about 5.1 million. 5.1 million is the number that we used with UFS in our modeling. We've continued to get new forecasts, and now we are looking at about 5.45 million for this year, resulting in almost an $800,000 budget overage and over $1 million increase from what the forecasts were showing when we were budgeting. So highlights some of the volatility in the market, and not all that is energy market. A lot of that has been environmental compliance associated with NOx allowances, air quality. There's called the Cross-State Air Pollution Rule, the CASPER rule, also known as the Good Neighbor Rule. It's an EPA law or EPA rule that basically requires entities that are polluting downstream states, downwind states to pay for it, basically. I'm not sure where MPPA's total annual expense landed, but our math showed somewhere in the neighborhood of about $10 million. To put it in perspective, Craig and Perry heard at the stakeholder meeting last year, 3 years ago, MPPA's total expense was about $20,000. So in 3 years, it's gone from a $20,000 expense to a $10 million expense. Even if I'm high on that number, I want to say maybe on the low end, $7.5 to $8 million total expense for them. So that's part of it. It's market volatility. It's cost of rail, cost of coal, cost of NOx compliance, cost of natural gas, the confluence of negativity. So that increased our overall operating expenses and also reduced our overall operating income. The non-operating revenue and expense, I don't remember all the details. That was an increase of, or decrease of.
So it's an increase in our interest income, an increase in our pilot payments, and then due to the rate increase, and then increase in our gain on capital sales.
Yeah, so different moving pieces. Ultimately, at the end of bottom line, we went from a projected just over $500,000 positive net income down to just under 300, about a $250,000 reduction in our proposed net, or our forecasted net income. Obviously, our net income and our operating income fuel our capital, but I like to highlight that included in the projections are non-cash entries that hit the income statement. Obviously, depreciation is about $775,000 a year. That is a non-cash entry. We also have the natural gas regulator station that's a non-cash entry, and that's you see the $111,000 that is expensed on a monthly basis to offset our investment in that. And then there's also the last one I want to highlight because it can really throw our end of year financials way out of whack, and there is no forecasting it. I've had 3 or 4 different accountants try to explain to me the GASB 68 entry, and it's all accounting voodoo to me. I don't understand it. The goal is to capture, my understanding is the goal is to capture the change in net liability associated with retirement benefits.
Yep.
But you can see non-cash entry, it happens after the fiscal year ends, so it happens with the audit, and that expense has ranged in the last 2 years, I believe. 3 years?
No, that's the last, since we've had it.
Since we've had it. I know originally we talked just looking a couple years.
Yeah, I looked all the way back.
You did end up looking all the way back, yeah.
Yep.
So it ranges though from $20,000 to $380,000.
Small little one.
There's no planning for that, but it is a non-cash entry. So the other thing we did was we looked at cash flow projections. This captures some of the changes in the change in the capital budget. We're pulling the construction services out, but wanted to show that we are still projected to grow cash slightly this year. That $78,000 is obviously not enough cash growth, which is why we put the cash management plan in place over the next 5 years to bump that cash reserve level up to about 140 days of operating cash at this point. So, any questions? I would say process this a little bit, and if you have more questions, please reach out. Happy to dig into it in more detail, but
Are you required to have a certain number of days on hand?
just by policy, internal policy. There's rating agencies, obviously we're rated by Standard & Poor's, and they have metrics that they want to see, but I think rating agency cash reserves are a little excessive, what they'd like to see. They want to see 180 to 200 plus days. That's pretty, I mean, for us, that would be, another $2 million roughly? I mean, it's just, I have different philosophies on that. I think the 140 to 160 days is a good window, but our target goal is 120 as a minimum. But we've got a plan in place to get up to about 140. All right, that's what I have there. I'll roll on to performance data. Again, we cover this every month. Overall, kilowatt hour sales are down, revenue is up. It's a product of PCA. I think we've looked into some of the specific, specifically the industrial customers, and tried to look month by month and see where, and I think a lot of it's just weather driven. We had a very mild summer, we had a very mild winter. Obviously, people mostly heat with gas, but it does impact their electric consumption. But overall, we've seen a decrease at the residential level, even though we've seen growth in revenue. We've seen a decrease in the kilowatt hour sales year over year. Commercial, we have seen a slight growth, but industrial sales are down from a kilowatt hour standpoint. But again, the revenue's there.
We need promotions for, we got Christmas lights, we need Valentine's Day lights, we need St. Patrick's Day lights, we get green lights, Memorial Day lights,
We
red,
need-
white, and blue.
We need
More grow facilities.
I was gonna say, we need a Valentine's Day grow facility. But, so some of the things that we are watching, and the commercial sales are gonna be elevated because the new grow operation does classify as a commercial sale, because of the structure of how they're served. So they fall under that, but looking at industrial sales, we'll see growth on the industrial scale side from the addition of Grand Rapids gravel.
Where's that going?
It's spring. We heated it up for a couple days, and then they asked us if we turned it off, and we worked with them to shut it off till the spring. They were looking at having some pretty significant fixed costs throughout the winter just to get fired up for a couple days. And turns out the winter's been very mild, but they've been operating with no electricity from us. So we'll fire them up in the spring, and we'll see that load come on in the spring. We'll see King Milling's additional load hopefully this fall in the next fiscal year. The Grand Rapids gravel, we should see some growth at the industrial level before the end of the fiscal year though. But yeah, that's the again, more performance data. The cost per kilowatt hour bounces all around. But we are continuing on that upward trend, and that is very, very much controlled by the PCA. You can see when the modified PCA went into place, and we started seeing that upward tick in cost per kilowatt hour. So, it's a very unfortunate outcome of volatility and disruption in the markets, and inflation and everything else. Cash and investments, still a relatively stable cash month. Really hoping to see some growth in cash. We need to see some growth before the end of the year. We're just under where we finished, or where we're significantly under where we finished last year, but hoping to get some growth in there. But some of that cash growth may fall on the tail end of the actual calendar year, not the fiscal year.
Would that line check purchase qualify as cash growth?
That would be a pretty significant aid in recovering and improving our cash position. Aging analysis, talked to Julie right before I left. She was waiting on me, but saw this past month, some of this is noise and timing. the showboat, or not this graph, I'm sorry, we'll scroll on to the delinquent balances. Similar, but the uptick in the delinquent balances, we've seen a steady uptick. Some of the difference between last month and this month is we just, it's balance of, we'll monitor balance of inactive accounts. The showboat is changing the name it's in. Well, they're gonna pay, I hope.
Me too.
Yeah, no, they're going to, some of this is just timing, but Julie, I talked to Julie and she did say that, you know, that number is creeping up. A large percentage of this will be lienable, so a large percentage of this amount won't, is not at risk of becoming bad debt, but it takes time to work through some of those issues, so you get a couple months of some building. It can take a while before you see that some of those invoices get paid, or we lien the property and ultimately collect our revenue through the tax roll. But again, pretty standard. Paperless billing and auto pay, again, very similar. We're starting to see that auto pay flatten out, but which we expected. But we're still continuing to see the growth in the paperless billing and active portal registrations. And as I had mentioned, the active portal registrations are cumulative portal or were you all able to
If we change that to just people who are actively,
All right, that's right.
active
That's what I thought.
customers enrolled.
So this, I reported that as we were digging into this, it was discovered after we reported a few months that it was total registrations. Well, this is now just the active customers, so we're still seeing that growth. And again, can't say enough good things about what our office staff has done. When we get to the income statement, I will highlight an interesting outcome of this. But we go to the PCA revenue and total PCA, we saw, again, we're continuing to see some downward pressure on the PCA, and it dipped below a penny this month for the first time in a few months, so that's good to see. We'll see what continues to happen in the spring, but moving in the right direction. Outage report, Ryan usually handles this, but luckily we had an awesome month and just had one outage. It was caused by a bad underground, so can't prevent that. I believe this is one, if I'm correct, this is the one where a critter got into the wiring and caused a short, and we ultimately repaired it, and obviously it was pretty quick, about 20 minutes, so. Very good, another great month. Moving on to the income statement, two things I'll highlight. Again, a couple more, I guess. First is, I'll go to the detailed statement. Customer late charges, we're about $6,500 behind budget right now, and initial indication and initial thoughts are this is very much a likely outcome of seeing auto pay enrollment grow. So over time, we'll need to adjust our revenue projections back, but I think it does a great job of highlighting that we're public power. We've offered things to our customers that are tools for our customers that actually take money out of our pockets, but we're not in the business of collecting late fees. We're in the business of serving our customers, and thought it was interesting. Other things that I'll highlight, oops, sorry, take your question.
So has that been kind of stable until recently?
I mean, we've been watching it this year. It's trended behind budget, but you'd have a better feel for
I don't think it did
previous
last
years.
year. I think this might be kind of the first year that we've really seen that happen.
Which coincides with the first year of
Which
pushing.
is a good indication that the billing system's helping.
I'll also say just purely anecdotal evidence. The two events correlate. Probably not gonna, dig into, what customers are on auto pay and their history of penalties, but it would be neat to know. We could take, if we could take every portal auto pay customer and get the cumulative total of the previous 12 months before they went on auto pay of late fees that they paid, it would be interesting, but
Mhm.
that's also
But even just, yeah.
not real efficient use of time.
Exactly, but even just like the previous few years, and then you, if it's kind of been steadily growing and then
Yeah, that's something we'll watch over time, and it's
Yeah.
something that previously where I was at, we had a program, a prepaid program, and we watched that drop off, and so it wouldn't surprise me.
that's a cool thing to point out.
Yeah, I thought it was neat.
Mhm.
I know Megan's been watching it for a couple months now. But I'll highlight sales revenue has tick above budget. Again, sales are down in volume, but in revenue, they're up, and we've exceeded the budget now. I want to highlight a very healthy, positive net income this month, which is very good to see our year-to-date net income go back to positive. But at $85,000 positive net income, we're trending pretty good ahead of budget. So we've still got some ground to make up to get to that 280-ish mark that was the new updated forecast. The other thing that I'll highlight is we are significantly over budget on the detail on our tree trimming effort. We're about $25,000 over budget year to date. And that's just a product of GL accounting where there's offsets elsewhere. It's generally just labor.
So it's like and stuff to it.
Yeah, so, cost center accounting, we plan to spend X number of time tree trimming and X number of time over here, but it's, you can't, you typically don't push one plunger down without another one coming up. They're all connected, so we are over budget there, but we've made it up elsewhere. Now, truck and transportation expense, we're gonna be over budget for the year. We had some major overhauling that had to happen on one of the bucket truck, right?
Forestry truck?
Was it I don't remember which one it was.
Where we had to rebuild?
Yeah, we had, what issues were there?
Right, it was a
It
forestry.
was turbo and
It was a
everything
forestry
else.
truck.
Yeah, that's what I thought, I can't keep track, but we had some major unanticipated expenses associated with that, we're just gonna finish over budget. We worked to make that up elsewhere. Total distribution expenses still track under. So, if you look at the summary sheet, everything basically every expense item is coming in under budget except for purchase power and marketing and advertising expense, and the marketing and advertising expense is immaterial overage. I know accountants may not agree, sorry Daniel, for
I just like seeing pennies on this. It makes me so happy.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I hate rounding off.
I'm
That's-
just the opposite. I can't stand seeing this.
Difference between an engineer and accountant.
Yep.
Alright, so I will move.
Unnecessary data, if you ask me.
I'll move on to capital budgets. We're continuing to make progress. I will say last month we wrapped up the camera project, which was nice to get wrapped up. I don't know when that bill hits. I don't know if it actually is reflected here.
February.
It did. I thought it hit in February. But again, a lot of the projects are not making monumental movement month to month, so it's a lot of purchase equipment, wait on stuff. We should see some pickup here in the next couple months with the generator coming in, capacitor banks that we've ordered are coming in. Material is going to continue to come in for the east side feed, and yeah. Other than that, I'll move on to we've been here a while, so I'll try to move through the manager's report pretty quick. Did want to just highlight that I was named vice chair of the energy services project at MPPA. And this is a really important project because it's where all of our market balancing flows through. So our market interfacing flows through the ESP, and so do all of our renewables. All those contracts flow through the ESP. And I was also named to Working Capital Subcommittee to evaluate the energy services project agreement So I'll be spending some time this summer working with 3 peers and MPPA to review that. So looking forward to that. We'll work with general manager from Grand Haven, executive staff member from Holland, and general manager from Zealand, along with the MPPA staff to review the energy services agreement. Starting to get a little more insight into the DTE integrated resource plan. Unfortunately, the MPSC case is, there's always interveners, and we had a meeting just to discuss our strategy and how we wanted to participate in that. But bring it up because it's definitely critical to our power supply and the potential outcomes. At the MMEA side, I'll note that the biggest thing is just understanding what the new state legislature is going to do. And then at the end of the month, I'll be attending the legislative rally in Washington, D.C. We'll go as MMEA vice president, so MMEA puts my bill on that one, which is nice. But we actually just secured a meeting with Representative Molinar, so we'll be meeting with our congressmen in person, and we'll also have meetings with our Senate representative staff members. Typically don't meet with the senators themselves, they have bigger staffs and they usually send their staff, a staff member, but be a good project. Representative Molinar is new to our district, so Craig and I have met with him and sat down. I've had some other conversations with him, and as public power is nonpartisan, so we try to avoid the partisan issues from a partisan standpoint, but do advocate for issues that are relative to us. So we'll be having a good conversation. He was very receptive to conversation the last time we talked to him about public power, and he's very engaged and interested, so hoping to build that relationship.
I was, pleased with his curiosity, his engagement, and,
I won't hit on too much on the distribution update outside the fact that I talked to Ryan's been providing this, and I just want to say that he does a much better job of providing you all insight at a more granular level, and he's more personable about it.
I love the last sentence of that.
Yes.
Part one.
Yeah, after finishing my MBA, I tend to write less personality, and Ryan writes with personality, and I appreciate reading his. I like reading his updates, and he does a good job. I hit much more broad strokes, but the guys do a great job. Biggest noteworthy item is the forestry mulcher. If you've been around town, you've noticed that we've been doing some vegetation management with the forestry mulcher. We had that thing for about 2 weeks, and we're still going back and cleaning up some areas. We want to maximize the distance that we could cover, but there's some areas that Perry and I have talked about that he had noticed, and we've heard from some customers asking what our long-term plans are. But the reception from the customers has been outstanding. They've been very supportive, very understanding, and typically appreciate the efforts we take to make sure that their power is reliable. Most of the customers talk about reliability and understand that trees are a major threat to reliability. We like trees, we support them, but we support the idea of trees in appropriate locations and effective management for reliability. Soil gas project, this is a lingering project. We're hoping to make our final submission to Eagle to have them sign off on the soil gas project so we can move into an owner maintenance mode. Other than that, Christmas tree recycling, there's some pictures in there. Christmas tree recycling, I think, was far more successful than I thought it was going to be. I was hoping we'd get 30 or 40 trees, and it would look it'd be beneficial to the people that used it, but there were over 100 trees, including one giant one that we took out of the right of way that drew a lot of attention. But that was a good event.
How many ornaments did you find?
I didn't hear any ornaments. I was
Because
disappointed.
usually there's an ornament or two that get,
Falls down your stairs while you're dragging it up.
well, they forget, or they didn't notice
Every
that.
year.
Wait,
Pull that reflection of those.
Yeah.
Matched up.
Left behind.
they got zapped before they. I want to say I wasn't able to get back for the actual event. I was in Lansing for an MPPA board meeting, but really would have liked to have watched that.
It seemed to be a big hit with people.
I got
I loved it.
I got a very nice note from Sandy at the library, thanking us for doing it. I should have included it in the board packet, but I love getting letters from her because she takes the time to write probably 4 or 5 letters a year for thanking us or just acknowledging what we do, and just a great asset to the community. But she shared an article from the Wall Street Journal where they were using goats to recycle Christmas trees, and I thought that was a neat correlation, but very, very much appreciate
So
her.
next year?
Next year, we're gonna go with that chipper next
All
year.
right.
Turns out, I don't think, the city's probably got an issue with goats roaming around the
I
fair now.
don't care about that, I think it'd be awesome.
Goats
They have them on
across
the
street.
rocks during the fair, and they jump in
This
the
is
little
a
pool.
contest, which can go through more trees.
Be
Yeah.
How
fantastic.
how much goat power does one vulture have?
Goat
It's a
power.
study. You need to study this,
The Nathan's famous Christmas tree.
to no longer say horsepower, and vultures.
Goat power.
Goat power.
Mulching power is converted to goat power.
There we
I
go.
like what's happening.
I like it. I will touch on, so one thing I want to go ahead and touch on is cybersecurity training. I talked to Perry some. I've not really pushed the issue on cybersecurity training because we've been going through some transitions, and I needed to understand a little bit more of what exposures we had, what we could put in place, how all the changes were going to impact the board, and ultimately, long story short, where we need to revamp the cybersecurity trainings. We've restructured them, but one of the questions that I have for the board is what can we do to enable staff or facilitate staff or facilitate the board in completing these. These are going to be very important to other strategic goals that we have. That I'd be happy to review outside of here.
Not
but-
email reminders from those people, but maybe email reminders from you
Yeah, so-
directly or a call or
Yeah, so what
something. I
what
mean,
I,
Casey,
yes.
use your time for that, I mean, but for those that need it, I mean,
So what I thought we would do is every training, the quarterly trainings are about 20 minutes. What I thought we could do is open them up. You should have got an email today, I believe. We opened up a new training today. It will stay open till the day after the next board meeting. So the thought was, anybody that wants to do it on their own, you got between now and the next board meeting to do it. If you're not able to get it done between now and the next board meeting, Perry and I were talking about, can we do a workshop? Can we do something to facilitate, and I don't know if you have any additional commentary you threw out. We talked about a lot of different ideas, on how to do this, but I just want to reiterate, and I'll ask for your support specifically. We're trying to help Tina, however you can, but this is something that we need to make a priority from the top down.
If we don't, here, the bottom line is, and I'm guilty as everybody, not everybody, I'm probably the most guilty. If we do not, if all the board members and company-wide, including the board, go through and do the security tests, the exercises, we will not be able to get cybersecurity insurance. It's done a lot different. Charlie and I explained, if you have a bad driving record, you can still get insurance. It just costs you more. with cybersecurity, if you have, you know, it doesn't cost you more, they just won't provide it for you. So everybody has to, we have to make a complete commitment and do them all, be part of it. And again, nobody, probably most of you don't want more meetings or anything. But, you know, I would be in favor, you know, if the rest of the board was, we actually designate a time and we do it all, or as Charlie said, we will do, if you don't get it done by the next meeting, you'll have an opportunity to, you know, 30 minutes at 5:30, come in at 5:30 and have people to help you or whatever, or if you have questions to go through and get it done.
And we may need to have a work session anyways. I'm gonna work with individual board members. We're in the process of implementing multi-factor authentication for your emails. Getting caught up on that. The only email accounts that don't have MFA set up on them now are the 5 board members. So we just need to get that squared away. And I don't want to be doom and gloom, but there is no other option when you talk cybersecurity. Cybersecurity will hit here at some point. It has recently impacted the city. An email account was compromised and somebody from either Ukraine or Russia or Japan, I believe, Ukraine and Japan had gained access to a city email account and was able to send emails from the account, not from some fake account that mirrors it, but sent the email from the account. And that obviously no damage was done. It was caught. It was shored up, but this is not something that it won't happen to us. You know, everybody thinks, oh, it won't happen to us. It won't happen to us. We are prime targets, unfortunately, because of what we do and who we are. Small city governments, municipal entities are targets for cyber criminals. So go sit through any cybersecurity training and you'll get scared to death real quick. You'll leave with the sweats and feel like it's just a matter of time before the sky falls on you. But other than that, as I mentioned, on a positive note, I'll be in Washington, D.C. dealing with all those lovely politicians. No. I'll be in D.C. at the end of the month. Also want to ask, look at your calendars. May 18th is the MPPA stakeholder meeting that we attended last year, and I will extend the invite obviously to the board, and we'll talk with Jim and the mayor about the invite to Congress, to council. I just gave you all promotion. Council members and city manager Mike came with us last year, so if you can attend, please do. I would definitely encourage it. I've impressed upon them that I'd like to focus more on the workings of MPPA and what MPPA is doing. Last year, there was some of the focus outward, but I know that already on the agenda is a representative from GM to talk about GM growth plans and battery plans and EV markets, so that'll be industry-wide, but I think you'll also hear quite a bit about the industry from an MPPA perspective, so it's a good event. I would encourage you to attend.
And that is where?
Oh, it's at Fred Meyer Gardens.
Again?
Is that an all-day thing? Was it last year? It was like
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
pretty much
morning
10 to 5
was,
or something like that.
It's really a morning, because the afternoon is if I remember that.
Dave, well, it was,
No, I think they're gonna come in the afternoon.
it was an all-day thing.
That's what it was.
It was that-
The morning was the MMEA business
Yes.
meeting. That's not something that's really,
Yeah.
I mean, anybody's welcome,
And
but.
then they had that joker in the afternoon.
Yeah, and then the afternoon was the actual stakeholder meeting, so it's an afternoon followed up with a reception. You joined us last year, didn't you? Or am I?
No, you came with us. to
That's what it was.
State
I was trying to
County.
figure out, I remember
Yeah,
having
I
a
was thinking about that too when you said Meyer Garden, but.
I
Yeah,
knew we
you
had
came
a
with us to
conversation.
state of the county.
Where's State of County? About-ish, I mean, when?
It's at Frederick Meyer Garden.
Oh, okay.
Please don't ask me any more questions
Okay.
about it, because I have no idea.
Okay.
I think it was September? I don't either.
Okay.
I can give you a 12-month window, best I can do.
All right, thanks.
It happened in the last year. All right,
That's
that's,
fall, for sure,
Okay.
fall.
that's everything. I want to highlight some of these pictures. This was an interesting picture. This is what happens when an electrician tries to do line work.
I wouldn't call it an electrician.
I would say homeowner.
We
Just looking
think
for
an
something
electrician
with
did
some
this.
screws and a clamp.
Yeah.
And yeah, all right.
So what that is it's the
Like
wire.
a Romex kit.
It is, it's a Romex wire clamp basically that you put in the side of like a panel box. That was what made their connection.
That's awesome.
Want to highlight some of the before.
It
just
worked, didn't it?
For a while. It caused an outage.
So would grabbing both wires with each hand.
I would say, you can use
I
your
mean,
tongue to connect
that
this
works
circuit
really
too, don't advise it though. Some before and after pictures with the Ford remulcher. This is on Alden Nash. This picture I really like because there's a blue sky in the second one, so it makes everything look better.
Yeah.
But again, you can see, you barely see the line here. If you look, you can see a transformer right there and a sagging line. That's what it looks like now.
All right.
So, just keep scrolling. That was Zach and Mark, obviously, at the Christmas tree recycling. We hosted Rotary at the Energy Center, obviously. That was a ton of fun. Got a lot of good comments on that. Had the whole staff help participate in that. Zach filled in for Ryan that day. But yeah, I want to highlight this. This is one of the favorite things that happened to me this past month. So we all participated in, or some of us went to the soup event for From that the chamber hosted. This person, who is absolutely awesome, had an amazing conversation with Julie at that. And on From's post, she talks about, oh, it's a great event, but most of her post is about how great of an interaction she had with Julie. And I just, it's not on the chambers, it's not on Hart, anything. It's on the From post, so I got a kick out of that. I also say that this person told Julie that they moved to Lowell partially because of the reliability. They were living in Ada, I believe. I don't remember the story, but they were living in Ada, had an unfortunate event at their house or something. I don't remember exactly what happened, but were looking to move and came to Lowell because they had heard all their friends that lived here told them how reliable low light and power was.
Amen.
It doesn't get like better advertisement than that. Other than that, just want to highlight that if you don't get the MMEA currents, this is a product of our marketing strategy a little bit.
I'm glad you put that in
In
there.
here.
I wonder if he's in it. You did, of course. Because,
It's a fun event. I want to highlight this picture on the left, especially since the mayor's here. We worked with the city on this. With the new chipper, it's important for us to make sure that the city has some exposure and experience on it and can operate it safely, because we work with the city on quite a bit, and nothing but positive comments coming from our guys about the city employees that participated.
Jeff's wearing that Cubs hat, I've talked to him about that.
It's Jeff, and I'm not sure who's the other ones that, do you know,
Yeah.
is that who it is? I never caught a name of the other person. I'm terrible with faces and names. But-
90s stuff.
But thought it was trying to get highlighted in currents a little bit, here and there when we have noteworthy things, so. Other than that, scheduled meetings, I'll highlight that Monday is a holiday for us, so us and the city will both be closed on President's Day next Monday. And that is all information items. All we have is the closed session.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to go to closed session for memorandum of understanding of the negotiations.
So moved.
supported.
And I would like a roll call.
Yeah, so we have to do a roll call vote. So Chairman Beecham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Strouben,
Yes.
Board Member Crawford,
Yes.
Board Member Founder.
Yes.
Okay,
And
we'll go in closed session. You can stay if you want, or you... All right.
I wish I would.
We're back in open session from our closed session of February 14th, 2023. I believe we have a potential motion.
A motion to allow the general manager to proceed with our memorandum of understanding in conjunction with the union. So far as there's no material changes, just some clarification.
And I also ask that you authorize me to sign.
And that we authorize the GM to execute the agreement.
Okay, do we have support?
I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next regular board meeting will be March 14th, and I will be absent from that. I will be out in Denver.
Short meeting.
Shit. Well, that's not what I heard last time. I heard the meetings went long last time I was not here. Board comment. Andrew.
So regarding the engine room, I guess from a lead and power perspective, I'm just glad it's getting used because we've been tossing around ideas on that thing for several years, I think. From like being a robotics mentor, right? I mean, it's obviously a really cool opportunity. So yeah, I'm just glad that they're able to find a space. And I guess just the story of it, right, is that we, there's always, I guess, the hope or the expectation that there'd be somewhere in the school after construction. But talking with Brian during our last competition, he was saying, he kind of felt like that wasn't gonna happen. I was like, ooh, I know space that we're not using, and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. And that's kind of how it all came about. It's just,
Yep.
So, again, I guess, thanks for supporting that, as a robotics mentor side of things, right, that's cool to see that, but I think from a light power perspective, if I were not involved in robotics, I would still want to improve that. It's just a good way to make use of the empty space, I think, and so I'm glad we're doing that. That's all I got. Happy Valentine's Day to
Thank you.
everyone.
I gotta go to Meyer before I go home though.
I couldn't meet with you last night because I had to go home. I cooked a steak dinner last night.
Where does the gas station have cards?
Handmade. Handmade.
Well, that's right.
Link on the back of here.
Probably find a whole white crowd or something.
It was great to attend the Rotary luncheon here. It was so nice to see, the whole staff and, together sharing what Lowell Light and Power does best for the community. And it just really engages people, and they learn a lot about us, and I think that's important. I also attended Super Tuesday and was surprised to see so much of Light and Power staff there.
We all came out to support Tony.
Yeah, all right.
I support the chamber, and Tony was a participant, so that was nice.
I went to the fire department dedication of the new fire truck the other day. The Frank Martin fire truck. Frank served, for 45 years with the fire department. So I just want to congratulate the fire department on that. I'm glad to see the engine room is going to be getting some use. That's, been a long time coming. As far as, we were talking about some strategy stuff tonight. This thing started recording. Stop. Okay. So one of the things that I was looking at in the strategic plan are enablers and disablers, and I hit on this earlier. And I think one Well, both enablers and disablers. One of our enablers is good vendors who stand behind their product and make things right. And of course, bad vendors who do not stand behind their product and leave us out to drown. And I don't know what we can, I'm just thinking out loud here, and maybe we can talk about this more when we sit down for more strategy stuff, but is there, a policy thing that we can put in place that just ensures that we look at, like I say, the reliability of a vendor even more? Like I say, I'm just putting this out there for food for thought right now. I haven't even, thought it through, but it's something I think we have to discuss, and so I hope we do that some more. And then I also wanted to thank Perry for his leadership and making this company, a lot of companies, they like to think they're a family, say the word family a lot, but as the chairman and the leader, Perry embodies that, I think, especially with having these t-shirts made for Jamie and, supporting Ryan. That's some leadership that starts from the top and shows who we want to be, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Daniel?
I want to say thanks to Charlie and Whitney for hosting a lunch. It was great. It was great to see everybody. It was really nice. I'd also like to thank staff, Megan, everybody for kind of working on that strategic plan with the caveat that it might not be something we really kind of continue with. I mean, that's
Internally, we would continue that no matter what.
sure, but it wouldn't be maybe at the same type of level, and so knowing that that's a possibility, like still kind of going through with that work is still. I just want to say I appreciate it. I think we appreciate it, even though we might not say like, let's put it on. We might chop something off of there. So I thought it was nice to see. So, and other than that. I don't know if I've announced we have a girl on the way.
Well,
I
congratulations.
guess that I can say that.
I found out in the most weird way. I'll just say that.
I usually tell people as I'm walking
Yeah, I was
out the
gonna say,
door,
pretty
like
much.
after we've hung out for hours, I'll be walking out the door and I'm like, where would I go? Close the door and we leave. It's my way of telling my friends and they all get mad at me and I just think it's funny. That's how I do it. Yeah.
I got it. What
Spare me the
time is it?
feelings, you guys stay up there, I gotta go home. So sometime in like mid-ish July, we'll be, hopefully, we'll add another to our household. And I will be very stressed.
You will be.
Sleepy.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Daddy's little girl.
yeah, two of them, yeah, 2 animals, yeah, great, wonderful. So, yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
I can give you some advice. Don't ever invite 4 8-year-olds to spend and have 5 8-year-olds in your house.
I would say don't buy a 4-story Barbie house with a pool and an elevator, and then show other little girls that those exist, by the way. I would say that is good advice.
Daniel's in the market for a Barbie dream house if anybody knows where to get
We'll
one.
use a lot of boxes. I built one from imagination. Yes.
Okay, yeah, we've had things going fairly well. I mean, some bumps in the road with the economy and different things. And it's been mentioned a little bit, but I guess I'm gonna put it out there. So our distribution manager, Ryan, and that's what these shirts are about, is going through cancer, and we wish her the best and him the best. And what I'm gonna say about that is, if it affects you, go out and do something about it. Donate blood, volunteer at Fram. My wife and I are both still active in the Pink Arrow, and she hears, she's has stepped back a ways, but she is still part of handing out for those that are in need. And so we, in our household, we hear about people that are struggling with bills, doing different things. So I would reach out to Lowell Light and Power ratepayers, and again, I'm putting a plug in for the A+ program. That's, you can donate, round things up, your bill up. You can donate $5 every bill period, or whatever the case that you feel comfortable with. That money goes to Fran, that money is managed by Fran for people in need, that maybe need help with paying their electric bill or whatever. And I'm just, my wife had some communication with somebody that was, it surprises me, it surprises us, the people in the community that still don't have a full picture of what Pink Arrow is, or haven't heard about Pink Arrow and how they help in those that are on a cancer or grief journey. And again, if you know of somebody that needs assistance, reach out to Pink Arrow, reach out to Fran. Again, it's what you can do and how you can help people in the community, and everything stays local. And again, if Ryan was here, they don't want a lot of attention, but there's things that you can do. Go donate a pint of blood. They might not need it, but you saw what went on at MSU yesterday. There certainly is a need for blood. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those that want to stay here, say no.
9:33. 9:33.